Kindness is its own reward. That's what Sarah's grandmother whispered to her every night before bed, her weathered hands smoothing back Sarah's copper hair. But when you're burning alive in a forest fire with your last breath given to save a creature that can't even thank you, you learn that kindness is just another word for dying alone. The smoke was so thick Sarah couldn't tell sky from ground anymore. Her lungs screamed for air that no longer existed. The flames had cornered her against the cliff face, a wall of orange fury that turned the world into hell itself. She should run. Every instinct begged her to run. But there, trapped beneath a burning log, a tiny wolf pup whimpered. Its silver-white fur was singed black at the edges. Those eyes, bright amber, too intelligent for something so small, locked onto hers with an understanding that pierced through her oxygen-starved delirium. "No one will know," a voice in her head whispered. "No one will know if you save yourself instead." Sarah's grandmother had been wrong about many things. She'd been wrong about Sarah's father coming back, wrong about the village accepting a half-blood orphan, wrong about kindness mattering in a world that only rewarded the strong. But Sarah couldn't leave the pup. Her hands were already moving, blistering as she gripped the burning log. The pain was everything. The pain was nothing. She heaved with strength she didn't have, and the log shifted just enough. The pup scrambled free, stumbling on shaking legs. "Run," Sarah croaked, her voice barely human. "Run." The pup looked back at her one last time. In those amber eyes, Sarah saw something impossible, a promise. Then it vanished into the smoke. The flames rushed in where the pup had been. Sarah's knees hit the scorched earth. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The fire was inside her now, consuming everything she was. At least something lived, she thought as the darkness took her. At least. Then she heard it. Footsteps, heavy, purposeful, moving toward the flames instead of away. A shadow fell across her burning body, massive, impossible. Through her failing vision, she saw him, a man who shouldn't exist. 7 feet of raw power wrapped in midnight black furs. His eyes burned silver white, exactly like the pup. "You saved my son," a voice like thunder rumbled. "You used your last breath for my son." Strong arms lifted her as if she weighed nothing. The pain doubled, tripled, every nerve ending shrieking at the movement. "No human has shown such honor in 300 years, the impossible man said, and his voice cracked with something that sounded like wonder, like grief. "You will not die today." Sarah tried to speak, but only blood came out. "Hold on," he commanded, and his silver eyes met hers with an intensity that burned hotter than any fire. "I am Theron, Alpha, King of the Northern Pack, and I have just become forever in your debt." The world went black, but Sarah's heart, against all logic, against all reason, kept beating. Chapter 1. The Unwanted Daughter. 3 weeks earlier, Sarah had learned to make herself small. It was a skill you developed when you were the village's favorite target, when your mother died birthing you and your father vanished into the northern forests before you could walk, when the only thing you inherited was copper hair too bright, eyes too green, and a grandmother who loved you but couldn't protect you. "Half-blood," the butcher's wife hissed as Sarah passed, clutching her basket of herbs. "Walking curse." Sarah kept her eyes down, kept walking. The morning market of Ashenvale was always worst on trade days. Too many people, too many opportunities for casual cruelty. "I heard her grandmother's sick again," someone whispered, not bothering to lower their voice. "Wasting away. Probably the girl's bad blood finally killing her." Sarah's fingers tightened on her basket until her knuckles went white. "Don't respond. Never respond. It only makes it worse." "Sarah." A warm voice cut through the malice. "There you are." Alara pushed through the crowd, her blonde hair gleaming in the sunlight like spun gold. The butcher's wife immediately smiled. Everyone smiled at Alara. She was the village healer's daughter, beloved by all, destined to marry the mayor's son. She was also the only person in Ashenvale who'd shown Sarah genuine kindness. "Walk with me?" Alara linked her arm through Sarah's, not waiting for an answer. Her presence was like a shield. The whispers stopped, the glares softened. No one wanted to offend Alara. "You shouldn't," Sarah started. "Shouldn't what? Walk with my friend?" Alara's blue eyes flashed with rare anger. Ignore them, Sarah. They're small-minded fools. They walked in silence until they reached the forest edge, where the market noise faded into birdsong and rustling leaves. Your grandmother? Alara asked softly. Worse. Sarah's voice cracked despite her best efforts. The fever won't break. She's not eating. I tried the remedies you taught me, but let me see her. Alara squeezed Sarah's arm. This afternoon, I'll bring supplies from my mother's stores. We'll figure this out. We. Such a simple word, but it made Sarah's throat tight with emotion. When everyone else saw a curse, Alara saw a person worth saving. Thank you, Sarah whispered. I don't know what I'd do without. The scream cut through the forest like a blade. Both girls froze. Then came another scream, high, terrified, distinctly male. That's Garrett. Alara's face went pale. The mayor's son. Her betrothed. They ran toward the sound, crashing through undergrowth. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Please don't let it be wolves. Please don't let it be. They burst into a clearing and stopped dead. Garrett stood with 3 of his friends, all sons of wealthy merchants. They'd cornered something against a massive oak tree, something small and white and— A wolf pup? Sarah breathed. Not just any pup. Its fur was the color of fresh snow, unmarked by the gray or brown typical of forest wolves. But its eyes, bright amber, too knowing, locked onto Sarah with an intelligence that sent chills down her spine. Stay back. Garrett brandished a thick branch like a club. The beast tried to attack me. That was a lie. Sarah could see it in the pup's stance, defensive, terrified, but not aggressive. It couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Garrett, it's just a baby, Alara said carefully. Let it go. It's more scared than— Are you mad? One of Garrett's friends, Thomas, the blacksmith's son, hefted a rock. It's a wolf. Kill it now before it grows big enough to kill us. No. The word burst from Sarah before she could stop it. 4 pairs of eyes swiveled to her. Garrett's lip curled. The half-blood speaks, he drawled. Tell me, Sarah, does your cursed blood make you sympathetic to monsters? His friends laughed. Alara stepped forward, her healer's authority clear in her voice. Garrett, this is cruel. The pup is no threat. Let it. I'll do what I want, Alara. Garrett's voice turned cold. Or have you forgotten that you're my betrothed? Not this creature's defender? The words hit Alara like a slap. Her face flushed, but she held her ground. Cruelty to animals is beneath you. Fine. Garrett lowered his branch with exaggerated courtesy. The half-blood can save it, then. If she wants to risk the wolf's teeth, let her. It was a trap. Sarah knew it was a trap. If she stepped forward, they'd mock her. If the pup bit her, which terrified creatures often did, they'd say her curse attracted monsters. If she walked away, she'd be proving she was a coward. No winning, she thought bitterly. There's never any winning. But the pup's eyes found hers again, and Sarah saw something she recognized. Please, please help me. She'd been that creature too many times to count. I'll take it, Sarah said quietly, setting down her basket. Sarah, you don't have to bram. Alara began. I'll take it, Sarah repeated, walking forward with slow, measured steps. Garrett and his friends backed away, grinning like this was the finest entertainment they'd seen all week. The pup watched Sarah approach, its tiny body trembling. I won't hurt you, Sarah murmured, crouching low to make herself less threatening. I promise. I just want to help. The pup's ears flicked forward. Listening. Sarah extended her hand slowly, letting the pup catch her scent. Her grandmother had taught her this, how to approach scared animals. Move slow, speak soft, never corner, always give them a choice. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the pup took one shaking step forward. Another. Its cold nose touched Sarah's palm, and something electric jolted through her like lightning contained in fur and bone. The pup's eyes widened. Sarah gasped. For just a moment, she felt something, a presence, vast and ancient, regarding her with shocked recognition. Then it was gone, and there was only a frightened baby animal pressing against her hand. Good, Sarah breathed. That's good. Come here now. She scooped the pup into her arms. It weighed almost nothing, all fur and fragile ribs. The poor thing was starving. "Congratulations," Garrett called mockingly. "The half-blood has a wolf. How fitting." His friends laughed as they walked away, shoving each other. Alara lingered, her expression torn between concern and something else. Something that looked like fear. "Sarah, that's not a normal wolf," Alara whispered. "Its color, its size. I've never seen anything like it." "I know." Sarah held the pup closer. It buried its face against her chest, seeking warmth. "But I couldn't leave it. Your grandmother needs you." "How will you care for a wolf pup too?" "I'll manage." Sarah met Alara's eyes. "I always manage." Alara sighed, then smiled sadly. "You do. You really do." She glanced back toward where Garrett had disappeared. "I should go. But I'll come tonight with the medicine. I promise." After Alara left, Sarah stood alone in the clearing with the wolf pup. It had stopped trembling, and now watched her with those unnervingly intelligent amber eyes. "You're going to be trouble," Sarah told it. "Aren't you?" The pup made a sound, something between a whimper and a chirp, that sounded distinctly like agreement. Despite everything, the cruelty, the worry, the impossible situation, Sarah laughed. It felt good to laugh. "Come on then," she said, gathering her basket with one hand while keeping the pup secure with the other. "Let's get you home. Grandmother will have opinions, but, well, we'll figure it out." As she walked back toward the village, the pup's weight warm against her chest, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Something needed her. Something chose her, not despite what she was, but maybe because of it. She didn't know that this moment, this choice, would change everything. She didn't know that the pup pressing against her heart was the son of the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories. She didn't know that 3 weeks from now, she'd burn for this choice. But she'd make the same decision anyway. Because Sarah had learned to make herself small. Yes, but she'd never learned to walk past something suffering, and that would make all the difference. Chapter 2. The Alpha's Son. Sarah's grandmother lived in a cottage at the very edge of Ashenvale, far enough from the village center that people could pretend she didn't exist, close enough that they could blame her when crops failed or livestock sickened. The cottage was small but sturdy, built by Sarah's grandfather decades ago. Wild roses climbed the stone walls, and herbs grew in careful rows along the south side. It was the only place Sarah had ever felt safe. She pushed through the wooden door, the wolf pup still cradled against her chest. "Grandmother?" she called softly. The main room was dim, curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. A fire burned low in the hearth, barely enough to keep the chill away. And there, in the bed near the window, lay the woman who'd raised her. Grandmother Miriam had been beautiful once Sarah had seen the faded portrait on the mantel. Raven black hair, sharp cheekbones, eyes like polished jade. But sickness had hollowed her out, leaving only papery skin stretched over fragile bones. Still, when those jade eyes opened and found Sarah, they sparked with the fierce intelligence that had kept them both alive all these years. "Child," Miriam's voice was barely a whisper. "You're back. Did you get the feverfew?" "Yes," and Sarah hesitated. "I brought something else." She approached the bed, and the wolf pup's head popped up, alert. Miriam's eyes widened. "Sarah, tell me you didn't." "I couldn't leave it, grandmother. Garrett and his friends were going to kill it." Miriam was silent for a long moment, studying the pup with an intensity that made Sarah nervous. Then, impossibly, the old woman smiled. "Come here," she beckoned. "Both of you." Sarah knelt beside the bed. The pup, sensing no threat, stretched its neck to sniff Miriam's extended hand. The old woman's fingers trembled as she stroked the white fur. "Silver-white coat," Miriam murmured. "Amber eyes. Oh, child, do you know what you found?" "A wolf pup that was going to die if I didn't help," Sarah said firmly. "This is no ordinary wolf." Miriam's eyes met Sarah's, suddenly more alert than she'd been in weeks. "This is a child of the northern pack." Sarah's blood went cold. Everyone knew the stories, the wolves that walked like men, the alpha kings who ruled the deep forests, the ancient packs that had existed long before humans built their villages, but they were just stories. warnings to keep children from wandering too far into the woods. Grandmother, that's just legend? Miriam coughed, her whole body shaking. Sarah quickly poured water from the pitcher, helping her drink. When the coughing subsided, Miriam gripped Sarah's hand with surprising strength. Your mother knew the truth. Your father learned it. And now you've stumbled into it. What are you talking about? Miriam's eyes drifted to the portrait on the mantel, but not to her own younger face. To the man beside her in the painting. Sarah's grandfather, dead before she was born. Your grandfather was born to the Northern Pack, Miriam said quietly. A wolf-blooded warrior who chose humanity. Chose me. And paid the price for that choice. The room spun. Sarah sat back hard, the pup scrambling in her arms. That's not possible. Your bright copper hair, your green eyes that see in the dark, the way animals trust you, even when they flee from everyone else. Miriam's smile was sad. You thought those were just traits, child? They're your heritage. Diluted, yes, barely a whisper of what your grandfather carried. But it's there. The pup made a soft sound, pressing closer to Sarah's chest, as if confirming the words. I don't understand, Sarah whispered. If this is true, why didn't you tell me? To protect you. Miriam's hand found Sarah's cheek, the touch gentle despite the trembling. The Northern Pack doesn't forgive deserters. Your grandfather fled to be with me, and they hunted him for it. By the time you were born, I thought we were safe. Thought they'd forgotten us. But this pup. Miriam looked at the small creature with something like wonder. This isn't just pack-born, Sarah. Look at its eyes. Look at its bearing, even frightened. This is royalty. As if understanding, the pup lifted its head, and for just a moment, Sarah saw it the intelligence, the authority that shouldn't exist in something so young. An alpha's child, Miriam breathed. And you saved it. Before Sarah could respond, a knock thundered at the door, hard, urgent, demanding. Both women froze. The pup's ears flattened against its skull, a low growl building in its tiny chest. Sarah of Ashenvale. A male voice bellowed. Open this door by order of the village council. Sarah's heart dropped. The council only came when someone was being accused of something serious. Stay here, she told her grandmother, quickly tucking the pup into a basket near the hearth and covering it with cloth. Don't speak. Let me handle this. She opened the door to find Council Elder Brennan flanked by 4 village guards. The old man's face was twisted with righteous fury. Sarah, he said coldly, you're to come with us. On what charge? Theft. Alara, the healer's daughter, has accused you of stealing medicine from her family's stores. The world tilted. What? That's insane. Alara is my friend. She'd never. She witnessed you in the storage room this morning, filling your basket with herbs and tinctures that don't belong to you. Brennan's voice carried the weight of judgment already past. Given your grandmother's illness and your unfortunate circumstances, we understand the desperation, but theft is theft. I didn't steal anything. Sarah's voice cracked. Check my basket, everything I have. I gathered from the forest or traded for. We will examine the evidence, Brennan said. At your trial, tomorrow at dawn. Trial? Sarah's legs nearly gave out. This is a mistake. Let me talk to Alara, she'll tell you. The healer's daughter has made her statement. You'll have your chance to defend yourself before the council. Brennan nodded to the guards. Take her. Rough hands grabbed Sarah's arms. She struggled, panic rising like bile in her throat. Wait, my grandmother is sick. She can't be left alone. Your grandmother's condition is unfortunate, Brennan said, without sympathy. But it doesn't excuse theft. Someone will check on her. Please. Sarah twisted in the guard's grip, looking back at the cottage. Through the window, she could see Miriam trying to rise from bed, one hand reaching out helplessly. Please, she needs medicine. She needs you to face justice for your crimes, Brennan interrupted. Perhaps this will teach you that kindness from people like Alara is a privilege, not a right. One you've clearly abused. They dragged Sarah away. She fought every step, screaming for them to listen, begging them to check with Alara. But the guards were stone-faced, and Brennan walked ahead without looking back. The village jail was a stone building behind the council hall, dark, damp, smelling of mold and human misery. They threw Sarah into a cell barely large enough to lie down in, slamming the iron door with a finality that echoed in her bones. "Someone will bring you water," one guard muttered, almost apologetically. "Trials at dawn. Don't make it worse by fighting." Then they were gone, and Sarah was alone. She sank to the floor, her whole body shaking. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. But it was. Someone had set her up, someone who knew exactly which accusations would stick to the unwanted half-blood girl, and they'd used Alara to do it. Why? Why would Alara betray me? Unless Alara hadn't. Unless someone had manipulated the situation, made it look like Sarah was guilty. Garrett. It had to be Garrett. She'd embarrassed him in the forest, shown him up in front of his friends. This was his revenge. Sarah pressed her forehead against the cold stone wall and let herself cry for her grandmother dying alone, for the wolf pup that would starve without care, for the friendship she'd thought was real but apparently meant nothing, for herself and the life that kept taking everything she tried to hold on to. Hours passed. The sun set, plunging the cell into absolute darkness. No one came with water. No one came at all. Sarah dozed fitfully, waking every time the wind rattled the barred window. In the darkness, her mind conjured terrible scenarios: grandmother collapsing with no one to help her, the pup crying for food, the trial ending with exile. Or worse. Around midnight, a sound jolted her fully awake. Scraping. At the window. Sarah scrambled to her feet, heart hammering. The window was small, barely large enough for a child to squeeze through, and 7 feet off the ground outside. Nothing human could reach it without a ladder. But the scraping continued. Then a huff distinctly animal. "Hello?" Sarah whispered, pressing her face to the bars. A massive shape moved in the darkness outside. Too large to be a wolf, too graceful to be a bear. Then silver-white eyes appeared at the window, gleaming with moonlight. Sarah stumbled back, a scream catching in her throat. The creature made a sound low, rumbling, distinctly questioning. Not aggressive. Almost. "Concerned? What are you?" Sarah breathed. The eyes blinked slowly. Then a voice emerged from the creature's throat, deep, ancient, speaking directly into Sarah's mind rather than her ears. "You saved my son." Sarah's knees hit the ground. This wasn't possible, wasn't real. She was hallucinating from stress and fear and, "I am Theron, Alpha King of the Northern Pack, and I have come to ask why a human girl would risk herself for a wolf pup she'd never met." The voice was overwhelming, not cruel, but so powerful it made Sarah's bones ache. She forced herself to speak through the terror, because he was scared, because those boys would have killed him, because I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't just walk away. Silence. Those silver eyes studied her with an intensity that felt like being dissected. "Your blood carries pack lineage," the voice said finally, faint but present. "You are descended from wolves who chose humanity." "My grandfather," Sarah whispered. "My grandmother just told me." "Miriam." Something like recognition colored the mental voice. "She was the reason one of our finest warriors abandoned his oaths. We thought the bloodline dead, but here you are, bearing the mark of our people, despite never knowing what you carried. I don't understand what you want from me. My son is still with you, still under your care." "I was arrested," Sarah said bitterly. "They think I'm a thief. At dawn, they'll probably exile me. Your son is alone in my cottage with my dying grandmother." More silence. Then, "Tell me what happened, everything." So Sarah did. She poured out the whole story, finding the pup, the accusations, Alara's supposed betrayal, her grandmother's illness. She had nothing left to lose. And something about the ancient presence made lying impossible. When she finished, the silver eyes blazed brighter. "You were betrayed by those you trusted, punished for showing mercy." The Alpha King's voice carried an edge like drawn steel. "And now you will die in this cage while your grandmother perishes and my son starves." "Yes," Sarah said flatly. "That's exactly what will happen. So, if you've come to judge me for not protecting him better, get in line." A sound emerged from the darkness, low, rumbling. It took Sarah a moment to realize the Alpha King was laughing. "You have fire in you, daughter of wolves. More than you know." The eyes moved closer to the bars. "I could free you. Tear these walls apart. Scatter your captors like leaves. But that would expose my son's presence here and put him in greater danger. Then why are you here? To make you an offer." The silver eyes burned with sudden intensity. "Keep my son safe. Get yourself free of these accusations. Survive long enough to return him to the Northern Pack. And I will give you anything you desire: healing for your grandmother, safety from those who persecute you, a place among wolves who understand what it means to be cast out." Sarah's heart clenched. "And if I fail? Then we both lose everything that matters." The Alpha King's presence pressed against her mind, heavy with urgency. "But I have seen your heart, Sarah of Ashenvale. You saved my son when you had every reason to walk away. That is not someone who fails when it truly matters." "I don't know how to get free," Sarah admitted. "I don't know how to fight them." "Then learn. Quickly." The eyes began to fade. "The trial is at dawn. Survive it. I will find a way to help, but you must trust yourself as much as I am trusting you." "Wait." Sarah pressed against the bars. "Your son, what's his name?" A pause. Then, softer. "His mother named him Kyrian. He is 3 months old, and has never been away from Packlands until now." "Kyrian," Sarah repeated. "I'll keep him safe, I promise." "I know you will, daughter of wolves. That's why I came." The presence vanished, and Sarah was alone again in the darkness. But something had changed. The despair that had crushed her earlier was gone, replaced by something sharp and bright and dangerous: determination. She would survive the trial. She would protect Kyrian. She would get her grandmother to safety. And she would make Garrett pay for what he'd done. The half-blood girl they'd tried to break was discovering she had teeth of her own. She just needed to learn how to use them. Chapter 3. The Trial of Lies. Dawn came too quickly. Sarah hadn't slept, couldn't sleep after the Alpha King's visit. Part of her wondered if she'd imagined the entire encounter. A fever dream born from exhaustion and terror. But the memory of those silver eyes felt too real, too visceral to be anything but truth. "Survive the trial," the voice had commanded. But how did you survive when the outcome was already decided? The guards came as pale light filtered through the barred window. They didn't speak, just unlocked the cell and hauled her out into the morning chill. Sarah's legs nearly buckled. She'd had no food or water since her arrest, and her body felt like it belonged to someone else. The council hall dominated Ashenvale's center square, a massive timber building that served as courthouse, meeting place, and symbol of the village's justice. Already, people crowded around its entrance, eager for the entertainment of watching the half-blood face judgment. Sarah kept her head high as they marched her through the crowd. She caught fragments of whispers, always knew she was a thief. Poor Alara, taken advantage of. Cursed blood finally showing. Then she saw Alara herself, standing near the council hall steps beside her mother. The healer's daughter wore a simple gray dress, her blonde hair pulled back severely, but it was her expression that made Sarah's chest constrict. Alara looked miserable, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands twisting together nervously. Their gazes met for just a heartbeat. Alara's lips parted as if to speak, but her mother's hand clamped down on her shoulder, and the moment shattered. She didn't want this, Sarah realized with sudden clarity. Someone forced her into this. The guards pushed Sarah through the heavy oak doors into the hall. Inside, the 5 council elders sat behind a raised platform, their faces carved from stone in judgment. Elder Brennan occupied the center seat, his silver beard practically quivering with righteous authority. To the right stood the accuser's section. Alara's mother, Magistra Helena, the village's head healer, a severe woman who'd never hidden her disdain for Sarah. Beside her, looking far too pleased with himself, stood Garrett. The pieces clicked into place. Garrett had manipulated this, used his influence, his betrothal to Alara, to force the healer's daughter into making false accusations. And Helena, who'd always wanted her daughter to marry into power, had gone along with it. "Sarah of Ashenvale," Brennan's voice echoed through the hall. "You stand accused of theft from the healer's stores. Specifically, 3 vials of moonflower extract, a jar of white willow bark, and 2 bundles of dried feverfew goods valued at 20 silver marks. 20 silver marks. More money than Sarah saw in 6 months. The number was deliberately inflated to make the crime seem worse. "How do you plead?" "Not guilty," Sarah said clearly. Her voice didn't shake. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "Magistra Helena," Brennan gestured to the healer. "Present your evidence." Helena stepped forward, radiating professional outrage. 3 days ago, I conducted inventory of our medical stores. Everything was accounted for. Yesterday morning, my daughter Alara found Sarah in our storage room. When confronted, Sarah fled. Later investigation revealed the missing items. Lies. Casual, confident lies delivered with the authority of someone who'd never been questioned. "I was never in your storage room," Sarah said. "I gathered herbs in the forest, as I always do. I can show you the exact locations." "Wild herbs." Helena's lip curled. "Convenient that you'd claim to find the exact same rare herbs we stock. Moonflower extract doesn't grow in these woods, girl. It's imported from the southern coast, at great expense." Sarah's mind raced. Moonflower extract, she'd never even seen it, let alone stolen it. "Then search my home. If I stole your medicines, they'll be there." "Already done," Brennan said coldly. "Your cottage was examined this morning." Sarah's blood went ice cold. "Grandmother, Kyrion, and?" she forced out. "We found this." Brennan held up a small glass vial filled with pale blue liquid. "Hidden beneath your grandmother's mattress. Moonflower extract." The hall erupted in gasps and muttered accusations. Sarah stared at the vial, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. Someone had planted it. Someone had gone into her home, past her dying grandmother, and planted evidence. "That's not mine," she said. But her voice was lost in the crowd's noise. "Silence." Brennan slammed his staff against the floor. "The evidence is clear. Sarah of Ashenvale, you stole medicine to treat your grandmother's illness. If I stole medicine for my grandmother, why would I hide it instead of using it?" Sarah's voice cut through the hall like a blade. "That makes no sense." For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across Brennan's face. Around the hall, people shifted uncomfortably. It was a good point. Then Garrett stepped forward, his expression dripping with false sympathy. "Perhaps," he said smoothly. "Sarah hid the medicine because she knew it was stolen. Maybe she planned to use it slowly, to avoid suspicion. Or perhaps—" He paused for effect. "Perhaps her guilt overcame her greed." "Guilt?" Sarah nearly laughed. "You want to talk about guilt?" "Careful, half-blood." Garrett's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You're already facing exile. Don't make it worse." The threat was clear. Keep talking, and the punishment would escalate. But Sarah was done being careful. Done being small. "Yesterday in the forest," she said loudly, addressing the entire hall. "Garrett and his friends cornered a wolf pup. They were going to kill it for sport. I intervened. And now, less than a day later, I'm on trial for crimes I didn't commit. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" "This is absurd," Garrett scoffed. "Are you truly suggesting I fabricated charges because you embarrassed me over a wild animal?" "Yes," Sarah said flatly. "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." The hall exploded into chaos. Garrett's face flushed dark red. Helena looked murderous. But in the crowd, Sarah saw doubt creeping into people's faces. They knew Garrett's temper, knew his pride. "Enough." Brennan's roar silenced everyone. "These are serious accusations, girl. Do you have any proof? Any witnesses who can verify your version of events?" Sarah's heart sank. Alara had been there. Alara had seen everything. But Alara stood beside her mother, silent and pale. And Sarah understood with crushing certainty that her friend couldn't speak. "Alara was there," Sarah said anyway, meeting the healer's daughter's eyes across the hall. "She saw Garrett threatening the wolf pup. She knows I'm telling the truth." Every gaze swiveled to Alara. The girl's face went ghost white. Her mother's hand tightened on her shoulder like a claw. "Alara," Brennan said, "is this true?" The silence stretched impossibly long. Sarah watched Alara's internal struggle play across her face. Duty versus friendship, safety versus truth. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Alara's voice cracked. I saw Sarah with a wolf pup, yes. But Garrett was protecting us. Helena interrupted smoothly. The creature was dangerous. My daughter told me everything. Sarah's version is a desperate distortion of events. That's not Alara started. Alara. Her mother's voice was pure ice. Remember yourself. Remember your place. And just like that, Sarah watched her last hope crumble. Alara's face collapsed, tears streaming freely now, but she nodded once. A tiny, broken surrender. The wolf was dangerous, Alara whispered. Garrett was, protecting us. The lie hung in the air like poison. Sarah felt something inside her crack, not her spirit, but her last illusion that friendship could survive in a world this cruel. So, Brennan said with finality, we have evidence of theft, testimony from the victim, planted medicine in your home, and now proven dishonesty about yesterday's events. Sarah of Ashenvale, the council finds you. The doors burst open. A figure strode into the hall, tall and commanding despite her age. Sarah's grandmother, Miriam, leaning heavily on a walking stick but moving with fierce determination. You will not, Miriam's voice rang clear, stronger than it had been in months, pass judgment without hearing from me. Miriam. Brennan's face tightened. You're ill. This trial doesn't concern. This trial concerns my granddaughter, which makes it very much my concern. Miriam limped toward the council platform, and the crowd parted before her like she carried plague. I was present when your thugs searched our home. I know exactly where that vial came from. Sarah's heart leaped. Grandmother, you shouldn't be. Quiet, child. Miriam's jade eyes blazed with the fire Sarah remembered from childhood. I've been quiet too long. Let an old woman speak her piece before she dies. The hall fell deathly silent. Even Brennan seemed uncertain how to proceed. Miriam was old blood, from before the current council's time. She commanded a respect that even they couldn't quite dismiss. That vial, Miriam pointed at the evidence in Brennan's hand, was placed under my mattress while I lay sleeping. I felt the disturbance, heard footsteps trying to be quiet, but I'm old and sick, not deaf. You expect us to believe, Helena started. I expect nothing from you, Helena. Miriam cut her off. But I will tell the truth that your daughter is too frightened to speak. Sarah didn't steal anything. She was framed by a boy whose pride was wounded. And you all know it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People who'd been certain of Sarah's guilt now looked uncertain. Garrett's face had gone from red to pale. These are serious accusations, Brennan said slowly. But you have no proof, Miriam. Just your word against. Against the council? Against the healer? Against the mayor's son? Miriam smiled grimly. You're right. I'm just a dying old woman. My word means nothing here. She turned to face the assembled villagers, and her voice rose with unexpected power. But answer me this, all of you. When has Sarah ever stolen, ever lied, ever harmed anyone in this village despite how you've treated her? Miriam's gaze swept across the crowd, and several people had the grace to look ashamed. She's fed your children when you wouldn't, helped birth your calves, gathered medicine and asked nothing in return. And this is how you repay that kindness? The shame was spreading now, rippling through the crowd like a wave. Sarah saw it in their faces, the uncomfortable recognition that they'd been ready to condemn a girl who'd never done them wrong. Perhaps, Garrett said, recovering his composure. Sarah has simply hidden her true nature well. The evidence was planted, a new voice said. Everyone turned. There, standing at the edge of the crowd, was Thomas, the blacksmith's son who'd been with Garrett in the forest. Thomas. Garrett's voice carried a warning. Don't. I'm sorry, Thomas said, and he looked genuinely miserable. I can't do this anymore. Garrett, you told me it was just a prank. You said we'd scare her, make her look foolish. You never said. He swallowed hard. I was there when you took that vial from the healer's stores. You said it was for the prank. I didn't know you were going to make it look like she stole it. The hall erupted. Garrett lunged toward Thomas, but the guards moved faster, restraining him. Helena looked like she might faint. And Brennan looked at the mayor's son with something very close to murder in his eyes. Is this true? The elder's voice was deadly quiet. He's lying. Garrett thrashed in the guard's grip. The half-blood has bewitched him somehow. Made him… I'm not bewitched, Thomas said firmly. I'm just done watching innocent people suffer because you can't handle embarrassment. The proof cascaded after that. Another of Garrett's friends came forward, guilt written across his face. Then another. The conspiracy unraveled like cheap thread, exposing the rot beneath. Garrett had stolen the medicine. Garrett had planted the evidence. Garrett had pressured Alara into lying, using her mother's ambitions and her own fear of losing her betrothal as leverage. By the time the confessions finished, Garrett was screaming incoherently, threats and curses spilling from his mouth. The mayor's son, the golden boy, revealed as petty and cruel, Sarah of Ashenvale. Brennan's voice was thick with something that might have been shame. The council finds you innocent of all charges. You are free to go. No apology. No acknowledgement of what they'd almost done. Just a dismissal, as if the last day of terror had been a minor inconvenience. Sarah walked toward her grandmother, her legs shaking with released tension. Miriam pulled her into a fierce embrace. You're safe, the old woman whispered. You're safe now. But Sarah knew better. She'd seen the hatred in Garrett's eyes as the guards dragged him away. Seen Helena's cold promise of retribution. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. As they left the council hall, Sarah heard a distant sound, barely audible over the crowd's noise. A howl, high and frightened, coming from the direction of her cottage. Kirian, we need to hurry, Sarah told her grandmother. Something's wrong. They hurried through the village as fast as Miriam's weakened body allowed. By the time they reached the cottage, smoke was already visible above the tree line. Not from the chimney. From the forest beyond, the fire had started. And Sarah's last chance to fulfill her promise to the Alpha King was burning away with every passing second. Chapter 4. Into the flames. The smoke rose in thick black columns, blotting out the afternoon sun. Sarah could smell it before she saw it acrid, wrong. The scent of a forest dying. Stay here, she told her grandmother, already running toward the cottage. Sarah, wait. But Sarah was already through the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. The interior was exactly as she'd left it except for the basket by the hearth. Empty. The cloth she'd used to cover Kirian lay discarded on the floor. No, no, no. Sarah spun in a circle, frantically searching. Kirian, where are you? A faint whimper answered from beneath her grandmother's bed. Sarah dropped to her knees and found the wolf pup pressed into the farthest corner, his amber eyes wide with terror. There you are. Relief flooded through her as she coaxed him out. It's okay, I'm here now. Kirian's ears flattened, and a low growl rumbled in his small chest. Not at her. At something beyond the window. Sarah turned and saw it, flames dancing through the forest, racing toward the cottage with unnatural speed. This wasn't a normal forest fire spreading gradually through underbrush. This was too fast, too purposeful. This was deliberate. We have to go. Sarah scooped Kirian into her arms and ran outside. Her grandmother stood in the garden, staring at the approaching inferno with horrified understanding. They said it, Miriam whispered, to destroy any evidence of Garrett's crimes, to silence anyone who might speak against him. Grandmother, we need to run. Where? Miriam gestured weakly at the forest. The fire's coming from 3 sides. They've boxed us in against the cliffs. Sarah's blood turned to ice. The cliffs' massive rock formations that bordered the eastern edge of Ashenvale's territory. Beautiful, deadly, and completely impassable. If they ran toward the village, they'd be heading straight into the people who wanted them gone. If they ran toward the forest, they'd burn. There has to be a way, Sarah said desperately. The creek bed is dry this time of year. The fire will jump it easily. Miriam's hand found Sarah's face, gentle despite the trembling. Child, listen to me. You need to take the pup and run. Head north, toward the deep forest. The northern pack will protect you. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. Miriam's jade eyes were calm, accepting. I can't run, Sarah. This fever has consumed everything I had left. But you can still survive. You and the Alpha's son. No, tears blurred Sarah's vision. No, I won't. A crack like thunder split the air. One of the massive oaks at the forest's edge exploded into flames, showering sparks across the cottage's thatched roof. Within seconds, the roof caught fire. Everything was burning. Sarah grabbed her grandmother's arm, trying to pull her toward the only clear path, a narrow game trail that led deeper into the forest. Maybe if they moved fast enough, they could outrun the flames. Maybe. Miriam's legs gave out. The old woman collapsed, her breathing labored, her skin gray. The journey from the cottage to the council hall and back had used everything she had left. Go! Miriam gasped. Please, Sarah. Let me die knowing you lived. I can carry you. You can't. Miriam's hand gripped Sarah's with surprising strength. But you can save that pup. You can honor your promise to the Alpha King. Don't let my death be for nothing. Kirian whimpered in Sarah's arms, pressing against her chest. The heat was becoming unbearable, the smoke thick enough to choke on. The fire roared closer, a living wall of destruction. Sarah had seconds to decide. Save herself and Kirian, or die here with her grandmother trying to carry someone who couldn't be saved. It was the cruelest choice she'd ever faced. I love you, Sarah sobbed, pressing her forehead against Miriam's. I love you so much. I know, child. Miriam's smile was peaceful, even as flames consumed the cottage behind her. Your grandfather is waiting for me. I'm ready to go home. Then she pushed Sarah away with the last of her strength. Run, Sarah, run. She ran with tears streaming down her face, with Kirian clutched against her chest, with her grandmother's final command echoing in her skull. The game trail was barely visible through the smoke. But Sarah's eyes, those strange green eyes that saw better in darkness, picked out the path. Behind her, the cottage collapsed in a shower of sparks and screaming timber. Sarah didn't look back. Couldn't look back. If she saw her grandmother consumed by flames, she'd stop running, and then they'd all die for nothing. The forest was a nightmare of heat and smoke. Trees exploded around her, their sap boiling and bursting through bark. Animals fled in panic, deer crashing through underbrush, rabbits darting across the path, birds shrieking overhead in confused flocks. Sarah's lungs burned. Each breath was agony, pulling in more smoke than air. Kirian had gone limp in her arms, unconscious from smoke inhalation. But his small heart still beat against her chest, still alive, still depending on her. Keep moving. Just keep moving. The game trail twisted deeper into the forest, away from the village and toward territory Sarah had never explored. The trees here were older, massive things with trunks wider than houses. The fire struggled to catch them, too much moisture in their ancient bark, too much life in their deep roots. But the underbrush burned, and the smoke was everywhere. Sarah stumbled over a root and went down hard, barely managing to twist so Kirian didn't take the impact. Pain exploded through her shoulder, but she forced herself back up. No time to rest. No time to hurt. Move. 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 The smoke was so thick now she couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Was she even still on the trail? The world had become an orange-black blur of heat and confusion. Sarah's body screamed for her to stop, to lie down, to surrender to the exhaustion dragging at her bones. Then she heard it. Water. The sound was faint, almost lost beneath the fire's roar, but Sarah's desperate mind latched onto it like a lifeline. Water meant safety. Water meant survival. She changed direction, crashing through burning underbrush toward the sound. Branches tore at her clothes and skin. The heat was unbearable. Kirian wasn't moving at all anymore. Please don't be dead. Please, please don't be dead. The ground suddenly dropped away beneath her feet. Sarah tumbled down a steep embankment, unable to stop her fall, protecting Kirian with her body as rocks and roots battered her from all sides. She hit the bottom hard enough to see stars. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then cool water touched her burned hand. Sarah forced her eyes open. She'd fallen into a ravine, steep-sided, rocky, with a small stream running through its center. The fire raged above, but here, protected by stone and water, the air was clearer. She crawled to the stream on hands and knees, lowering Kirian into the shallow water. The cold shocked him back to consciousness. He sputtered and whined, but his eyes opened amber and aware. "That's it," Sarah croaked, her voice barely working. "Breathe, just breathe." She collapsed beside him in the stream, letting the water soak through her burned clothes and cool her blistered skin. Above them, the fire roared like a living thing, but down here in this rocky sanctuary, they were safe. For now. Sarah didn't know how long she lay there. Time became meaningless, just the sound of water, the distant fire, and Kirian's small body pressed against hers. The pup had revived enough to lick weakly at her burned hand, as if trying to comfort her. "Your father promised me anything," Sarah whispered to him. I think I might need to collect on that promise. Because I don't know how we survive this." As if in answer, a howl split the air deep, powerful, full of rage and grief. Not a wolf's howl, something larger, something ancient. The Alpha King knew. Theron knew his son was in danger, knew Sarah had kept her promise even as everything burned. And from the fury in that howl, he was coming. But would he arrive in time? The fire above intensified, driven by evening winds. Sparks rained down into the ravine. The stream would protect them from direct flames, but smoke inhalation would kill just as surely. Sarah could already feel her consciousness fading, her oxygen-starved brain shutting down function by function. Kirian whimpered, pressing closer. Trying to share warmth, trying to share strength neither of them had. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered. "I tried. I really tried." Her eyes drifted closed. The world faded to distant sounds, fire crackling, water flowing, her own heartbeat slowing. "This is how I die," she thought with strange clarity. "Burned and broken in a ravine, holding a wolf pup I tried to save. There were worse ways to go. At least she'd kept her promise. At least she hadn't abandoned someone who needed her. At least." Massive hands grabbed her shoulders, lifting her from the water with inhuman strength. Sarah's eyes flew open. A man loomed over her, 7 feet of pure muscle wrapped in dark furs, his eyes burning silver white with barely contained power. Not a man, not really, something wearing a man's shape. "You kept him safe." Theron's voice was thunder and gravel. "Even as you burned. Even as you lost everything. Promised." Sarah managed through cracked lips. "Promised I would. And you paid for that promise with everything you had." The Alpha King cradled her against his chest like she weighed nothing. With his other hand, he scooped up Kirian, who immediately nuzzled against his father with relieved whimpers. "Your grandmother?" Theron asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Dead." The word broke something in Sarah's chest. "She told me to run. She gave you the greatest gift a parent can give." Theron's voice softened impossibly. "The chance to live when they cannot." He moved through the ravine with supernatural speed, his steps sure even in darkness. Sarah's consciousness wavered, but she felt the moment they broke free of the smoke, cool air rushing into her lungs, the scent of pine instead of ash. "The village," Sarah mumbled. "They tried to kill us. Garrett will answer for what he's done." The promise in Theron's voice was absolute. "But first, you must survive. Your body is failing, daughter of wolves. Your burns are severe. Without healing, you'll die before sunrise. Don't care." Sarah's words were slurring. "Kirian's safe. That's what matters." "It matters," Theron agreed. "But so do you. You saved my son, used your last breath to honor a promise to a creature you'd never met. That kind of honor is rare. I won't let it die in a ravine." Sarah wanted to argue, but her body had finally hit its limit. The pain, the smoke damage, the exhaustion, all of it crashed over her at once. As darkness claimed her, she heard Theron's voice like a distant echo. "Hold on, Sarah of Ashenvale. Your story isn't finished yet. Subscribe if you believe Sarah deserves better than this. Because people like Sarah need an audience that won't abandon them when the world burns everything they love. Don't be someone who watches suffering and does nothing. Drop a comment if Sarah's pain is your pain too. Tell me, have you ever lost everything trying to save someone else? Then, nothing. Just darkness and the fading sound of a heartbeat that refused to quit. Chapter 5. The Northern Pack. Sarah woke to silver light and the scent of pine. For a confused moment, she thought she was dead. The afterlife her grandmother had described, peaceful, painless, full of soft light and the voices of those who'd gone before. Then pain crashed through her body like a tidal wave, and she knew with absolute certainty that she was very much alive. Easy. A woman's voice, low and commanding. Don't try to move yet. The healing salve needs time to work. Sarah's eyes struggled to focus. She was lying on something soft furs, she realized, piled deep and warm. Above her, a ceiling of woven branches filtered moonlight into patterns across her vision. Not her cottage, not anywhere she recognized. A face appeared above her, angular and beautiful, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that gleamed like polished copper. The woman's hair was black as midnight and fell in a thick braid over one shoulder. She looked maybe 30, but something in her gaze suggested far greater age. Who? Sarah's voice came out as a rasp. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed hot coals. Here. The woman pressed a cup to Sarah's lips. Drink slowly. It's willow bark tea with honey. It'll help with the pain and the throat damage. The liquid was cool and soothing. Sarah drank greedily, only stopping when the woman pulled the cup away. Not too much at once. Your stomach isn't ready. The woman set the cup aside and studied Sarah with those unsettling copper eyes. I'm Ravenna, second of the Northern Pack. You're in our healing den, deep in pack territory. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. Sarah's mind struggled to process that. Kyrian. The pup is fine. Theron's with him now. Ravenna's expression softened slightly. You saved the Alpha King's son, girl. That's not something we take lightly. Memory flooded back the fire, her grandmother's death. The desperate flight through burning forest. Sarah's chest constricted with grief so sharp it physically hurt. My grandmother. I know. Ravenna's hand found Sarah's, the touch surprisingly gentle. Theron told us everything. Miriam was known to the pack once, when your grandfather still lived among us. She was a good woman who made a hard choice for love. We mourned her passing with the proper rites. Tears leaked from Sarah's eyes before she could stop them. She'd been holding everything together for so long, the trial, the fire, the impossible choices. Now, finally safe, the grief came pouring out. Ravenna didn't tell her to stop crying, didn't offer empty comfort. She just sat there, her hand steady on Sarah's, letting the storm of emotion run its course. When Sarah finally had no more tears left, Ravenna offered her water again. Your burns are healing well, the woman said, checking the bandages that wrapped Sarah's arms and shoulders. Wolf pack salve is far more effective than human medicine. You'll have scars, but you'll keep full use of your limbs. You were very lucky. Doesn't feel lucky, Sarah whispered. No. I imagine it doesn't. Ravenna's gaze was knowing. You lost your home, your grandmother, everything familiar. You're in a strange place among people who aren't quite human. And you're wondering why Theron brought you here instead of leaving you to die in that ravine. Sarah nodded weakly. Because you honored a debt when you had no reason to. Because you chose mercy when cruelty would have been easier. Because... Ravenna paused, choosing her words carefully. Because you carry wolf blood, however diluted, and the Northern Pack protects its own. I'm not one of you, Sarah said. My grandfather left. Your grandfather made his choice. You're not bound by it. Ravenna stood, moving to a small table where various herbs and ointments were arranged. Theron made you a promise. Anything you desire, he said. Have you thought about what you want? Sarah's mind was still foggy from pain and medicine, but one thought surfaced clearly. I want Garrett to pay for what he did. Vengeance? Ravenna glanced back, one eyebrow raised. That's what you'd ask for? Not safety, not a home, not healing for your injuries. He murdered my grandmother. The words came out flat, hard. He tried to kill me and Kyrian. He needs to face justice. Human justice already failed you, Ravenna pointed out. What makes you think it'll work now? Then wolf justice. Sarah met Ravenna's gaze steadily. I don't care which. I just want him to answer for what he's done." Ravenna's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Now, you sound like Pac. But that's not my decision to make. When you're strong enough to walk, Theron will speak with you. He'll decide what debt is owed and how it'll be paid." Over the next 3 days, Sarah healed with shocking speed. The wolf pack salve worked like magic burns that should have taken months to recover from, instead scabbed over and began regenerating pink, healthy skin beneath. Ravenna explained it was a mixture of herbs found only in the deep forest, combined with something she called moon-blessed water from sacred springs. Sarah didn't understand the magic involved, but she couldn't argue with the results. As her body healed, she learned about her new surroundings. The Northern Pack's territory was vast, hundreds of miles of ancient forest, rocky peaks, and hidden valleys. The pack itself numbered around 300, though only about a third maintained human form regularly. The others preferred their wolf shapes, running wild through the forest. The healing den where Sarah recovered was part of a larger compound built into the side of a mountain. Structures made of timber and stone blended seamlessly with the natural rock formations, creating a settlement that felt more grown than built. "We've lived here for over 1,000 years, Ravenna told her, while changing her bandages. "Long before humans came to these lands. We've seen empires rise and fall, watched villages like yours appear and disappear like mayflies. The forest remembers everything. I don't know empires." "And you?" Sarah asked. "How old are you?" Ravenna's smile was enigmatic. "Old enough to have known your grandfather, young enough to still find humans fascinating. That's all you need to know." On the 4th day, Sarah was finally strong enough to leave the healing den. Ravenna brought her new clothes, leather pants soft as butter, a woven tunic in deep green, and a fur-lined cloak that was probably worth more than Sarah's entire cottage had been. "Theron wants to see you," Ravenna said. "He's at the summit stone. Can you walk that far?" Sarah tested her legs. They felt weak but functional. "How far is it?" 20 minutes, if you're healthy. 40 for you, probably. I'll walk with you." The pack compound was stunning in daylight. Sarah had glimpsed it through fever dreams, but seeing it clearly took her breath away. Stone buildings with carved doorways rose 3 and 4 stories high, connected by rope bridges and wooden walkways. Gardens grew in impossible places, herbs and flowers cascading down rock faces, trees growing from what looked like solid stone, and everywhere, wolves. Some were in human form, men and women of all ages going about daily tasks. Others were fully wolf, massive creatures that made normal forest wolves look like puppies. They watched Sarah pass with curious eyes that glowed with human intelligence. "They can smell your wolf blood," Ravenna explained. "Faint as it is, it marks you as kin. They're curious because no one with your lineage has returned to pack lands in decades. What if they decide I don't belong here? Then you'd already know. Pack law is simple. We accept or we reject. There's no middle ground." Ravenna glanced at her. "The fact that you're walking freely through our territory means you've been accepted, at least provisionally." They climbed a winding path that led up the mountain. Sarah's legs burned with effort, but she refused to ask for rest. Whatever Theron wanted to discuss, she'd meet it standing on her own feet. The summit stone was a massive flat boulder jutting from the mountainside, offering a view that stretched for miles in every direction. And there, standing at its edge with Kyrian at his feet, was the Alpha King. In daylight, Theron was even more imposing than he'd been in the darkness of the ravine. He stood well over 7 feet tall, his body a masterwork of controlled power. His hair was black, threaded with silver, pulled back in a warrior's knot. His eyes, those burning silver-white eyes, fixed on Sarah as she approached. Kyrian saw her and immediately bolted forward, yipping excitedly. The pup had grown noticeably in just 4 days, his legs longer and stronger. He crashed into Sarah's legs, nearly knocking her over in his enthusiasm. "He's been asking for you," Theron said, his deep voice carrying easily across the stone. "I told him you needed to heal, but patience isn't something pups excel at." Sarah knelt, letting Kyrian lick her face and whimper his joy. The pup's unconditional love was a balm to her battered soul. "Thank you," she said, looking up at Theron, "for saving us, For bringing us here. For. Her voice caught. For everything. You thanked me by using your last breath to save my son. Theron moved closer, each step deliberate. That debt cannot be easily repaid. I don't want repayment, but I owe it nonetheless. The Alpha King crouched, bringing himself closer to Sarah's eye level. This close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the scars that marked his arms and chest. This was a being who'd lived through centuries of battles. You asked for vengeance against those who wronged you. Is that still what you want? Sarah thought of Garrett's smug face, thought of Helena's cold manipulation, thought of her grandmother dying alone in flames. Yes, she said firmly. Then I'll give it to you. Theron's smile was sharp as a blade. But not in the way you think. I won't slaughter villagers like livestock, tempting as that might be. The pack has an uneasy truce with human settlements. Breaking it would cause more problems than it solves. Then what? I'll give you power, Theron interrupted. I'll give you a choice. You can stay here, safe and protected, and I'll handle your enemies my way. Or, his silver eyes gleamed with something dangerous. Or I can give you the means to handle them yourself. Sarah's heart began to pound. How? There's a ritual, Theron said slowly. Ancient, dangerous, used only in the most extreme circumstances. It can awaken the wolf blood sleeping in your veins, not enough to make you full pack your human heritage is too strong, but enough to give you strength, speed, healing beyond what normal humans possess, enough to make you formidable. What's the catch? Sarah asked. Because there was always a catch. The ritual might kill you. Theron's expression was grave. Your body is 1/4 wolf at best. The transformation could tear you apart. Even if you survive, you'll be neither fully human nor fully wolf. You'll belong nowhere, caught between two worlds. I already belong nowhere, Sarah said bitterly. The humans rejected me before this. What do I have to lose? Your life, Ravenna said quietly from behind her. Your humanity. Your choice to walk away from all of this and start fresh somewhere else. Theron nodded. She's right. You could leave this place, travel to the southern cities where no one knows your name. Start over. I'll give you gold, supplies, letters of introduction. You could have a normal human life. It was tempting. For a moment, Sarah let herself imagine it a new city, a new name. No one knowing about half-blood curses or dead grandmothers or fires that consumed everything. Then she thought of Garrett walking free, thought of Helena facing no consequences, thought of her grandmother's death being forgotten like it meant nothing. No, Sarah said. I want the ritual. I want the power to make them answer for what they've done, even if it kills you. Even then. Sarah met Theron's burning gaze without flinching. Because at least I'll die trying to get justice instead of running away. Silence stretched between them. Kyrian whimpered softly, pressing against Sarah's leg as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Finally, Theron stood. Then we'll perform the ritual at the next full moon. 3 nights from now. Use that time to prepare yourself, to be certain of this choice. Once begun, the ritual cannot be stopped. I'm certain now, Sarah said. Nevertheless, 3 nights. Theron's voice carried the weight of command. Ravenna will train you, teach you what you need to know. And Sarah, he paused. If you survive this, you'll owe the pack a debt of your own. Power always comes with a price. What kind of debt? That depends on what you become. Theron's smile was enigmatic. Survive first, then we'll discuss what comes after. He shifted, then his form blurring, collapsing, reforming in the space of a heartbeat. Where the man had stood, a massive wolf now sat, silver-white fur, eyes like captured moonlight, easily the size of a horse. Kyrian yipped excitedly and bounded after his father, as Theron loped away across the summit stone, disappearing into the forest with supernatural grace. Sarah stood there, her decision made, her fate sealed. In 3 nights, she'd either gain the power to face her enemies, or she'd die in the attempt. Either way, the half-blood girl who'd learned to make herself small was about to become something else entirely. Subscribe if you're the type of person who roots for the broken. Because Sarah needs an audience that believes in second chances, in justice earned through fire and pain. Comment. What would you do in Sarah's position? Would you choose safety or vengeance? Tell me. Something fierce. something dangerous, something that refused to stay small ever again. Chapter 6. The Awakening. The 3 days before the full moon were the hardest of Sarah's life. Ravenna trained her with relentless intensity, pushing her healing body to limits she didn't know existed. They started before dawn and didn't stop until well after dark, with only brief breaks for food and water. The ritual will test every part of you, Ravenna explained on the first morning, leading Sarah to a clearing deep in the forest. Your body, your mind, your spirit. If any part of you is weak, the transformation will find that weakness and exploit it. You need to be as strong as possible. Going in. I can barely walk without my legs shaking, Sarah pointed out. How am I supposed to get strong in 3 days? You won't. Ravenna's smile was sharp. But you'll learn to push through weakness. That's more important. The training was brutal. Ravenna made her run through the forest until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, then made her get up and run more, made her climb cliff faces with her still healing hands until they bled through the bandages, made her fight clumsy, desperate attempts at combat that usually ended with Sarah face down in the dirt. Again, Ravenna would say. Every single time. Get up. Again. And Sarah got up. Again and again and again, because stopping meant giving up. And Sarah was done giving up. On the second day, Ravenna brought her to a cave system deep beneath the pack compound. The tunnels twisted and turned in complete darkness, so black that Sarah couldn't see her own hand in front of her face. Your wolf blood gives you better night vision than normal humans, Ravenna said, her voice echoing off stone walls. But you've never learned to use it. Down here, you have no choice. Navigate these tunnels and find your way back to the surface. What if I get lost? Then you stay lost until you figure it out. Ravenna's footsteps faded. The ritual happens in darkness, Sarah. If you can't master this fear, you won't survive what comes next. Sarah stood in the absolute dark, her heart hammering, panic rising in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to call for help, to refuse this impossible task. Instead, she closed her eyes, pointless in the darkness. But somehow it helped and breathed. Slow, steady. I can do this. I've survived worse than darkness. When she opened her eyes again, something had shifted. The darkness wasn't quite as absolute anymore. She could see barely, like shapes moving through deep water, the outline of the tunnel walls, the texture of stone, the subtle variations that marked different passages. Her wolf blood, awakening to necessity. It took her 6 hours to find her way out. 6 hours of wrong turns, dead ends, moments of despair when she thought she'd die down here in the dark. But when she finally emerged into daylight, filthy and exhausted and triumphant, Ravenna was waiting. 5 hours faster than I expected, the woman said with something like approval. You're learning. On the third day, Ravenna took her to the summit stone, where she'd first spoken with Theron. Today, you learn to listen, Ravenna said. Listen to what? Everything. Ravenna sat cross-legged on the stone, gesturing for Sarah to join her. The forest is never silent. It's constantly speaking, you just need to learn its language. Close your eyes. Tell me what you hear. Sarah closed her eyes and listened. At first, she heard only the obvious things wind through trees, birdsong, the distant rush of water. Deeper, Ravenna commanded. Stop listening with your ears. Listen with your blood. It sounded like mystical nonsense. But Sarah tried. She let her mind drift. Stop trying to identify and catalog sounds, just listened. And slowly, impossibly, the forest opened up to her. She heard the flutter of a butterfly's wings 20 feet away, the skitter of a beetle in tree bark, the soft breath of a deer hiding in undergrowth half a mile distant, the rhythmic pad of wolf paws pack members moving through their territory. I hear them, Sarah breathed. I hear everything. That's your heritage, Ravenna said softly. Buried under generations of human blood, but still there. Waiting for you to claim it. When Sarah opened her eyes, the world looked different, sharper, more alive. Colors were more vibrant, details more distinct. She could see individual leaves on trees hundreds of yards away, could track the movement of a hawk circling overhead with perfect clarity. This is what I'll become? She asked, If the ritual works, this is a taste, Ravenna corrected. If the ritual works, you'll be far more. But yes, this is a glimpse of what you're reaching for. That evening, as the sun set on the third day, Theron summoned Sarah to his den. It was carved directly into the mountain, a massive chamber with walls of natural stone and a ceiling that opened to the sky. A fire burned in the center, and around it sat the pack's elders. 9 wolves in human form, their eyes glowing with ancient power. Kyrian was there too, curled up near the fire. The pup had grown significantly in just a week, now nearly twice the size he'd been when Sarah first saved him. He bounded to her immediately, and Sarah knelt to embrace him. "He's been asking for you all day," Theron said from his seat at the fire's head. "I think he knows what tonight brings." "Tonight?" Sarah's heart skipped. "But the full moon isn't until tomorrow night, yes." Theron's expression was grave. "But before the ritual, you need to understand what you're truly asking for. The elders are here to witness your choice and ensure you're making it with full knowledge." One of the elders, a woman so old her hair was pure white, leaned forward. "Sit, child. We have stories to tell you, warnings to give." Sarah sat across from Theron, Kyrian immediately climbing into her lap. The pup's weight was comforting, grounding her as the elders began to speak. "The ritual you seek is called the Blood Awakening," the white-haired elder said. "It's been performed only 7 times in our 1,000-year history. Of those 7, only 3 survived." Sarah's blood ran cold. 3 out of 7? "The odds are not in your favor," another elder, a scarred man with one milky white eye, added. "Your wolf blood is weak. The awakening will try to strengthen it, but the process is violent. Your body will tear itself apart and rebuild. If your will isn't strong enough, if your spirit breaks during the transformation, you'll die screaming. And if I survive," Sarah forced the words out, "then you'll be something new," Theron said. "Not quite human, not quite wolf. You'll have strength beyond normal humans, speed and senses that rival young pack members. You'll heal faster, live longer, but you'll also be marked. Other wolves will always know what you are, a half-blood who reached for more than she was born to. Some will respect that," Ravenna added from where she stood in the shadows. "Others will see it as an abomination. You'll have enemies in both the human and wolf worlds." "I already have enemies," Sarah said flatly. "At least this way I can fight them." "Fighting isn't the same as winning." The white-haired elder's gaze was piercing. "The power we offer won't make you invincible, girl. It won't guarantee your revenge. It'll just give you a chance if you're smart enough to use it wisely." "I'll take a chance over certain defeat," Sarah replied. The elders exchanged glances. Some looked approving, others skeptical. Finally, the white-haired elder nodded. "Then let us tell you of the last person who survived the Blood Awakening. Perhaps her story will guide yours." The tale they told was both inspiring and terrifying. A woman named Astrid, born to human parents but descended from wolves 5 generations back. She'd sought the ritual for similar reasons, revenge against those who'd destroyed her family. She'd survived the transformation, gained the power she sought, and then she'd lost herself to rage. "The awakening amplifies what's already inside you," the scarred elder explained. Astrid's anger became fury. Her desire for justice became bloodlust. She slaughtered those who'd wronged her. Yes, but she didn't stop there. She killed innocents, children, anyone connected to her enemies, no matter how distantly. "We had to hunt her down," Theron said quietly. "Put her down like a rabid wolf. It was necessary. But it haunts me still." Sarah's mouth went dry. "You think I'll become like her?" "We think you could become like her," the white-haired elder corrected. "If you let vengeance consume you, if you forget why you sought power in the first place." Her ancient eyes softened slightly. "But we also see something in you that Astrid lacked, restraint. You've had every reason to hate, to lash out, to hurt those weaker than you. Yet you never have. You saved Kyrian when you could have walked away. You protected your grandmother at the cost of your own safety. You chose mercy, even when the world showed you only cruelty. That's why we're allowing this," another elder added. "Why we're risking another Astrid. Because Theron believes you're different. And what Theron believes, the pack follows. All eyes turned to the Alpha King. He sat perfectly still, his silver gaze locked on Sarah with an intensity that made her feel transparent. "I do believe you're different," Theron said. "But belief isn't certainty. Once the ritual begins, you'll face a choice. Embrace the beast inside you, or master it. Choose wrong, and I'll put you down myself before you become what Astrid became." It should have been a threat. Instead, it felt like a promise. Brutal, but honest. "I understand," Sarah said. "Do you?" Theron rose, moving around the fire toward her. Kirian scrambled out of her lap as his father approached. "Because once we begin, there's no going back. You'll be changed forever, Sarah. Even if you control the beast, even if you use your power wisely, you'll never be fully human again. You'll never fit into the world you came from." "I never fit there anyway," Sarah replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Then tomorrow night, under the full moon, we'll awaken what sleeps in your blood." Theron extended his hand. "May you be strong enough to survive it." Sarah took his hand. His grip was crushing, a reminder of the power she was reaching for. But she didn't flinch, didn't pull away. "I will be," she said with conviction she didn't entirely feel. The elders departed after that, leaving Sarah alone with Theron, Ravenna, and Kirian. The fire burned low, casting dancing shadows across the stone walls. "You should rest," Ravenna said gently. "Tomorrow will be the longest night of your life. If you survive the first hour, you might see dawn. And if I don't, then we'll honor your memory as one who died seeking justice." Ravenna's hand found Sarah's shoulder. "But I think you'll survive. You're stronger than you know." After Ravenna left, Sarah sat by the fire with Kirian curled against her. The pup was almost asleep, his breathing deep and steady. She stroked his fur, finding comfort in the simple act. "Thank you," Theron said suddenly. Sarah looked up. The Alpha King had moved to the chamber's edge, staring out at the star-filled sky. "For what?" "For saving my son when you had no obligation to. For keeping your promise, even when it cost you everything." He glanced back, and for a moment, the ancient power dropped away, revealing something raw beneath. "Kirian's mother died bringing him into this world. He's all I have left of her. If he died because of human cruelty," his voice broke, "I don't know what I would have become. He's worth saving," Sarah said simply. "That's all that mattered." Many humans wouldn't agree. They see wolves as monsters, as threats. Theron turned fully toward her. "But you looked at a frightened pup and saw someone who needed help. That's rare, Sarah. That's precious. Don't lose that part of yourself tomorrow night, no matter what else changes." "I'll try," Sarah promised. "That's all any of us can do." Theron moved toward the chamber's exit, then paused. "One more thing. If you survive this, if you gain the power you seek, use it to build something, not just to destroy. Revenge is empty without purpose beyond it." Then he was gone, leaving Sarah alone with the sleeping pup and her own churning thoughts. Tomorrow night, under the full moon, she'd either become something powerful enough to face her enemies, or she'd die trying. Either way, the girl who'd learned to make herself small was about to disappear forever. What emerged in her place, if anything emerged at all, would determine not just her fate, but possibly the fate of everyone who'd wronged her. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to rest, though sleep felt impossible. Tomorrow, everything would change. She just had to survive it first. Chapter 7. Blood and Moonlight. The full moon rose blood-red over the northern pack's territory. Sarah stood at the center of a stone circle deep in the forest, ancient monoliths carved with symbols that predated human language. The air thrummed with power, making her skin prickle and her wolf blood sing in recognition. She wore nothing but a simple white shift that fell to her knees. Ravenna had explained that clothing would only be destroyed during the transformation, and modesty mattered less than practicality. Her feet were bare against cold stone, and the autumn wind raised goosebumps across her skin. Around the circle's perimeter, the pack gathered. Hundreds of wolves, some in human form, most in their true shapes, sat in silent witness. Their eyes glowed in the moonlight, reflecting crimson and gold and silver. Theron stood directly across from her, flanked by the 9 elders. He'd shed his human clothing, wearing only leather pants that looked ancient and ceremonial. Intricate tattoos covered his chest and arms, pack markings that told stories Sarah couldn't read. Sarah of Ashenvale. Theron's voice carried across the circle with supernatural clarity. You stand before the Northern Pack seeking the blood awakening. Do you come of your own free will? I do, Sarah replied, surprised her voice didn't shake. Do you understand that this ritual may kill you? I do. Do you swear, should you survive, to honor the pack that gave you this gift? To use your power wisely and never against those who shelter you? Sarah met his silver gaze. I swear it. Theron nodded. The 9 elders began to move, forming a circle around Sarah. Each carried a stone bowl filled with dark liquid that gleamed like oil in the moonlight. The blood awakening requires 3 elements, the white-haired elder intoned. Blood of the pack, to call forth what sleeps in your veins. Water from the sacred spring, to purify what must change. And your own will, stronger than death itself. The scarred elder stepped forward first, dipping his fingers in the bowl. He drew symbols on Sarah's forehead, her cheeks, her throat, cold liquid that burned where it touched. Blood of warriors, he said. Those who fought and died defending the pack. Their strength flows into you. One by one, the elders marked her arms, legs, chest, back. Each marking burned like ice fire, and Sarah had to clench her teeth to keep from crying out. The liquid wasn't just cold, it was wrong, something that didn't belong in the human world. When all 9 had finished, Sarah's entire body was covered in glowing symbols. They pulsed in time with her heartbeat, getting brighter with each passing second. The moon is at its apex, Ravenna called from outside the circle. It's time. Theron moved forward, carrying his own bowl. But this one didn't contain blood, it held water so clear it seemed to glow from within. This is the hard part, he said quietly, for Sarah's ears alone. When you drink this, the transformation will begin. The pain will be unlike anything you've experienced. You'll want to scream, to beg for it to stop, to die rather than endure another moment. But you cannot give up. If you surrender to the pain, it will consume you. How do I fight pain? Sarah whispered. You don't fight it, you survive it. Theron's eyes held something that might have been sympathy. Find something to hold on to, a memory, a purpose, a reason to live. Wrap yourself around it and don't let go, no matter what. He pressed the bowl to her lips. Drink, Sarah of Ashenvale, and may your spirit prove stronger than your body's limits. The water tasted like starlight and stone, like impossible things given physical form. Sarah drank it all, feeling it burn down her throat and into her stomach. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the pain hit. It started in her chest, a sensation like her ribs were breaking, splintering outward. Sarah gasped, stumbled, would have fallen except Theron caught her. Stand, he commanded. You must remain standing, or the ritual fails. Sarah's legs shook, but she stood. The pain spread into her arms, her legs, her spine. It felt like every bone in her body was simultaneously breaking and reforming, like her muscles were tearing apart and weaving back together in new configurations. She screamed. Couldn't help it. The sound tore from her throat, raw and animal. Around the circle, the pack began to howl. Not in mockery and support. Their voices rose to the blood-red moon, a chorus of solidarity and strength. Remember why you're doing this. Sarah thought desperately through the agony. Remember grandmother. Remember justice. Remember. The pain intensified. Her vision went white, then red, then black. She felt her body convulsing, felt Theron's hands the only thing keeping her upright. Find your anchor. His voice boomed. Find what keeps you human. But Sarah couldn't think past the pain. It was everywhere, everything, consuming her like the fire that had destroyed her home. She was burning again, dying again, and this time there was no escape. Kyrion's face flashed through her mind, those amber eyes, looking at her with absolute trust. You saved my son, Theron had said. That kind of honor is rare. The pup had needed her, had trusted her, had pressed his small body against her chest and believed she would protect him. Sarah grabbed onto that memory like a lifeline. The pain didn't lessen, but it suddenly had a counterweight. She wasn't just suffering, she was enduring, surviving. for Kyrian, for her grandmother's memory, for every person who'd ever been cast aside and told they didn't matter. She was choosing to survive. The symbols on her skin blazed like miniature suns. The pack's howling reached a fever pitch, and deep inside Sarah, something that had been sleeping for generations began to wake, her wolf blood answering the call. It felt like a beast unfolding inside her ribcage, powerful, primal, barely contained. It wanted to run, to hunt, to tear apart everything that had ever hurt her. The rage was intoxicating, overwhelming, promising power beyond imagining. This is where Astrid fell, a distant part of Sarah's mind whispered. This is where she let the beast consume her. The rage offered everything: strength to crush her enemies, speed to hunt them down, power to make them pay. All she had to do was surrender to it, let it fill her completely, become the monster everyone had always said she was. For a moment, Sarah teetered on the edge. The beast was so strong, so seductive. Why fight it? Why not just let go? Then she remembered her grandmother's words. Kindness is its own reward. It had seemed like a lie at the time, and maybe it was. But Sarah had shown kindness to a frightened wolf pup, and that kindness had led her here, had given her a second chance, had proven that mercy and strength weren't opposites. I am not just rage, Sarah thought with crystalline clarity. I am rage and kindness, fury and compassion, beast and human both. She reached for the monster inside her, not to destroy it, but to claim it, to make it part of her instead of letting it be everything. The beast fought. God, how it fought. It wanted dominance, wanted control, wanted to be the only thing that mattered. But Sarah was stronger than she'd ever known. She'd survived losing everything. She'd walked through literal fire. She'd faced death and chosen life anyway. The beast couldn't break someone who'd already been broken and reformed themselves. Slowly, impossibly, Sarah wrapped her will around the creature inside her, not crushing it that would destroy the power she needed, but containing it, shaping it, making it hers to command rather than be commanded by. I am the master here, she told it. You are mine. The beast howled in fury, and then, gradually, bowed. The pain stopped. Sarah collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. Her body felt strange, lighter somehow, but also denser, stronger. Every sense was amplified to an almost painful degree. She could hear heartbeats from the watching pack members, could smell the pine sap bleeding from trees hundreds of yards away, could see individual stars in the night sky with perfect clarity. She survived, Ravenna breathed, sounding shocked. More than survived, the white-haired elder said with wonder. Look at her marks. Sarah looked down at her arms. The symbols the elders had painted were no longer just on her skin. They'd sunk into her skin, becoming permanent tattoos that glowed faintly silver. Pack markings, wolf markings, proof of what she'd become. Stand, Theron said, and there was something new in his voice. Respect. Let the pack see what you've become. Sarah stood on legs that felt like coiled springs. Power thrummed through every muscle, begging to be used. She felt like she could run for days without tiring, could leap impossible distances, could fight with strength that would shatter human bones. But underneath the power, she was still herself. Still Sarah. The beast was there, would always be there now, but it answered to her. The pack erupted in howls, celebration this time, not support. Against all odds, the half-blood girl had survived the blood awakening. Theron approached, his silver eyes studying her with newfound intensity. How do you feel? Different, Sarah said, and her voice came out lower, carrying an edge it had never had before. Stronger, like I could tear down mountains. You couldn't, Theron said dryly. But you could probably punch through a stone wall. Your strength is perhaps 5 times what it was. Significant, but not superhuman. Your speed, senses, and healing are where you'll notice the most dramatic changes. He circled her slowly, examining the glowing marks on her skin. The symbols have bonded perfectly. That's extremely rare. Usually they fade within days, becoming normal scars. But yours. He touched one lightly, and Sarah felt power pulse beneath his finger. Yours are permanent. You'll carry pack marks for the rest of your life. How long will that be? 200 years, perhaps more. Ravenna joined them, her copper eyes bright with fascination. The blood awakening extends lifespan significantly. You'll age much slower now, heal from injuries that would kill normal humans. 200 years. Sarah tried to process that and couldn't. She'd struggled to imagine surviving to next week. Centuries seemed incomprehensible. There's something else, the white-haired elder said, peering at Sarah intently. Her eyes. Sarah touched her face reflexively. What about them? Look at your reflection. Theron gestured to a pool of water at the circle's edge. Sarah knelt beside the still water and gasped. Her face was the same copper hair, sharp cheekbones, familiar features, but her eyes had changed. What had been green now held flecks of amber that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Wolf eyes, staring back at her from a human face. They'll fade to normal in daylight, Ravenna explained. But at night, or when you call on your power, they'll glow. Anyone with supernatural sight will know immediately what you are. What am I? Sarah asked, still staring at her transformed reflection. Something new, Theron said. Something we don't have a name for yet. Not quite human, not quite wolf, a bridge between worlds. He placed his hand on her shoulder, and the gesture felt ceremonial. The Northern Pack recognizes Sarah of Ashenvale as one of our own. She carries our blood, our marks, our protection. Any who harm her answer to me. The assembled pack howled their agreement. The sound was deafening, primal, and it resonated in Sarah's bones like coming home. Now comes the hard part, Theron said when the noise subsided. You have the power you sought. The question is, what will you do with it? Sarah stood, facing the Alpha King and the assembled pack. Her body thrummed with newfound strength, her mind clearer than it had ever been. The rage was still there, would always be there, but it was a controlled burn now instead of a wildfire. I'm going back to Ashenvale, she said. I'm going to face Garrett and everyone who helped him, and I'm going to make them answer for what they've done. Revenge? The scarred elder asked. Justice, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Theron's gaze was piercing. Because from where I stand, they look remarkably similar. Sarah met his eyes without flinching. Revenge is hurting people because they hurt you. Justice is making sure they can't hurt anyone else. I won't kill Garrett, tempting as that is, but I will make sure the village knows the truth. That his crimes aren't buried. That my grandmother's death means something. Silence stretched. Then, slowly, Theron smiled a fierce, approving expression that transformed his stern face. Then you'll have the pack's support, he said. But Sarah, remember Astrid. Remember what happens when justice becomes bloodlust. If I see you crossing that line, our protection ends. Understood? Understood, Sarah replied. Good. Theron glanced at the moon, now descending toward the horizon. Dawn comes in a few hours. Rest. Tomorrow, we'll plan your return to the village, and we'll make sure Garrett regrets the day he ever crossed you. As the pack dispersed and the ritual circle emptied, Sarah stood alone in the moonlight. She held up her hand, watching the symbols on her skin pulse with silver light, felt the power coiled in her muscles, the beast waiting patiently inside her ribcage. She'd survived. Against all odds, against a ritual that killed more than it saved, she'd survived and claimed the power she needed. Now came the hard part. Using it wisely. Garrett had destroyed her life, thinking her weak and helpless. Tomorrow, he'd learn that the half-blood girl he'd tormented had become something far more dangerous than he could imagine. Tomorrow, the wolf would return to Ashenvale, and there would be a reckoning. Chapter 8. The reckoning begins. Sarah stood at the edge of Ashenvale 3 days later, watching smoke rise from chimneys in the early morning light. The village looked exactly as she'd left it. Timber buildings clustered around the central square, the council hall dominating the skyline, fields stretching beyond in orderly rows. Peaceful, innocent, as if nothing terrible had ever happened here, as if her grandmother hadn't burned to death while the village watched. You're certain about this? Ravenna asked from beside her. The wolf woman had insisted on accompanying Sarah, along with 2 other pack members, silent warriors who'd shifted to human form for the journey, but radiated predatory power. I'm certain, Sarah replied. Her voice was steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. Not from fear, from anticipation. She'd spent the last 3 days learning to control her new abilities. The strength was easy, she just had to remember not to break things accidentally. The speed took more practice, learning to move without overshooting her target or crashing into walls, but the hardest part was controlling the beast inside her. It wanted blood. Specifically, Garrett's blood. Not yet, she told it. Justice first. Then, if he forces our hand, we'll show him what a real monster looks like. The beast settled, content with that promise. Remember the plan, Ravenna said. We go in peacefully. You present your case before the council, give them a chance to make this right, and when they refuse, then we show them why refusing was a mistake. Ravenna's smile was sharp. But we do it, Theron's way, no unnecessary killing, no harming innocents. We're here to prove the pack is better than human cruelty, not worse. Sarah nodded. The plan was sound, even if part of her wanted to skip straight to the confrontation. But Theron had been clear. She represented the Northern Pack now. Her actions reflected on all of them. Build something, not just destroy, he'd told her. Make them want to be better, not just fear what happens if they're not. They entered Ashenvale as the sun crested the eastern hills. People were just beginning their daily routines, opening shops, heading to fields, gathering water from the central well. The first person to see them was old Willem the baker, and his face went white as fresh flour. Sarah? He breathed. But you're supposed to be dead, Sarah supplied. Burned in the fire that destroyed my home? Sorry to disappoint you, Willem. The baker stumbled backward, nearly dropping his breadbasket. Others were noticing now, emerging from homes and shops to stare at the impossible sight of the half-blood girl returned from certain death. And she looked different. Even without calling on her power, Sarah radiated something new. Confidence, strength, an aura that made people instinctively step back and lower their eyes. She's got wolves with her, someone whispered. Gods protect us. She's brought the pack. Fear rippled through the gathering crowd. Sarah could smell it sharp and acrid, making her wolf blood sing with satisfaction. These people had tormented her for years, had stood by while Garrett destroyed her life. Let them be afraid. But she kept her expression calm, neutral. This wasn't about terrorizing innocents. I'm here to speak with the council, Sarah announced, her voice carrying clearly across the square. To present evidence about the fire that killed my grandmother and nearly killed me. I'm not here for violence unless someone gives me reason to be. The crowd parted as Elder Brennan emerged from the council hall, flanked by 2 guards. The old man's face was carefully neutral, but Sarah could see the calculation in his eyes. Sarah of Ashenvale, he said formally. We heard reports you'd perished in the forest fire. We're pleased to see those reports were mistaken. Pleased? Sarah's laugh was bitter. That's an interesting word choice, Elder. Tell me, did the council investigate who started that fire? Brennan's jaw tightened. Forest fires are tragic but natural occurrences. There was nothing natural about that fire. Sarah moved forward, and the crowd scattered before her like leaves. It was set deliberately, in 3 locations simultaneously, designed to trap anyone at my cottage against the cliffs. That takes planning, that takes intent, that takes murder. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Brennan raised his hands for silence. These are serious accusations. Do you have proof? I have testimony. Sarah gestured to Ravenna. The Northern Pack witnessed the fire's aftermath. They can confirm its unnatural pattern. The word of wolves? Brennan's tone dripped with disdain. Forgive me if the council finds that insufficient. Then perhaps you'll find this sufficient. A new voice cut through the tension. Alara pushed through the crowd, her face pale but determined. Behind her, looking miserable but resolute, was Thomas, the blacksmith's son who'd confessed during Sarah's trial. Alara, Brennan's voice carried a warning. You should return home. This doesn't concern. It concerns me directly. Alara's voice shook, but she stood firm. Because I know who started that fire. And I can't stay silent anymore. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Sarah's heart began to pound. She'd hoped Alara might speak up, but hadn't dared count on it. Thomas and I have been investigating since the fire, Alara continued, moving to stand beside Sarah. We found evidence witnesses who saw Garrett and 2 of his friends heading toward Sarah's cottage with oil and torches the day of the fire. We found the remains of accelerant at 3 different ignition points, exactly as Sarah described. She pulled a bundle of papers from her cloak. Statements from witnesses. Analysis of the burn patterns. Everything needed to prove this was deliberate arson. Brennan's face had gone from neutral to thunderous. You dare accuse the mayor's son? I accuse a murderer. Alara's voice cracked with emotion. He killed Miriam. He nearly killed Sarah. And he threatened to kill me if I spoke up. I'm done being afraid of him. As am I, Thomas added, stepping forward. Garrett has terrorized this village for years, and we've all been too afraid of his father's power to stop him. But enough is enough. Sarah deserves justice, and by the gods, we're going to help her get it. Sarah stared at them both, something tight and painful loosening in her chest. They'd risked everything to stand with her. After everything that had happened, they'd chosen truth over safety. Touching, a cold voice said from the council hall entrance, but ultimately pointless. Garrett descended the steps, flanked by his father, Mayor Aldrich, a portly man with cold eyes and a politician's smile. Garrett himself looked remarkably unconcerned, almost amused by the accusations. Sarah, he drawled. I'm amazed you survived. Though I can't say I'm pleased to see you've brought. What are these? Forest creatures? Attack dogs? His gaze swept dismissively over Ravenna and the pack warriors. How desperate you must be, to seek help from animals. The beast inside Sarah roared, demanding she tear out his throat. Her hands clenched into fists, and she felt her fingernails sharpen into claws. Not yet, she told herself. Let him condemn himself first. I brought witnesses, Sarah said evenly. And I brought protection. Since the last time I trusted Ashenvale's justice, I nearly died for it. Yes, about that. Mayor Aldrich stepped forward, his expression oozing false sympathy. The fire was indeed tragic. But as Elder Brennan said, forest fires are natural occurrences. I'm afraid without concrete proof that my son was involved. We have proof. Alara thrust the papers forward. Witness statements, physical evidence. From unreliable sources. Aldrich waved dismissively. Common folk with grudges. Opportunists seeking to profit from tragedy. The council cannot act on such flimsy. Then let me provide proof, even you can't dismiss. Sarah's voice cut through his words like a blade. She pulled a charred piece of wood from her pack, one of the accelerant-soaked torches she'd recovered from the fire site. This is from the southern ignition point. It still smells of lamp oil, expensive oil, the kind only wealthy families can afford. Should we compare it to the oil in the mayor's household? Aldrich's face went rigid. That proves nothing. It proves someone with resources set that fire. Sarah's eyes, flickering amber in her anger, locked onto Garrett. And we both know who that someone is. Garrett's smirk faltered. Just for a moment, something like fear flashed across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. Careful, half-blood, he said softly. You're making accusations you can't back up, and there are consequences for slander against noble families. Noble. Sarah laughed, and the sound held no humor. There's nothing noble about you, Garrett. You're a spoiled child who can't handle being told no. You tried to kill me because I embarrassed you. You murdered my grandmother because she stood up for me. You're not noble. You're pathetic. The crowd gasped. No one spoke to the mayor's son that way, ever. Garrett's face went purple with rage. You dare. I dare because I have nothing left to lose. Sarah moved forward, and Garrett instinctively stepped back. You took my home, my family, everything I had. What else can you possibly do to me? I can make you wish you'd died in that fire. Garrett snarled. There it is. Sarah's smile was sharp. A threat. In front of the entire village. Tell me, Garrett, is that how innocent people react to accusations? Garrett realized his mistake too late. Around the square, people were watching with new understanding. The mayor's son, threatening violence against someone accusing him of murder. It didn't look good. The council will review this evidence, Brennan said quickly, trying to regain control. A proper investigation will be conducted. Until then, all parties should. Until then, Garrett will flee, Sarah interrupted. Or worse, he'll arrange another accident. No. This ends today. You can't demand immediate judgment, Aldrich blustered. The law requires human law. Sarah's eyes flashed amber, and she let just a hint of her power show. But I'm not fully human anymore, am I? I carry the blood and marks of the Northern Pack, which means I can invoke pack law for justice. The crowd went deathly silent. Even Brennan looked shocked. Pack law hasn't been invoked in 50 years, he said slowly. Then it's overdue. Sarah turned to Ravenna. Tell them what pack law says about murder. Ravenna stepped forward, her copper eyes gleaming. Pack law is simple. If a member of the pack is wronged by outsiders, they may challenge the accused to single combat. The challenged may accept, face pack justice, or submit to the pack's ruling without contest. This is absurd, Aldrich sputtered. We're a civilized village, not barbarians. You're a village that burns half-blood girls alive and calls it justice. Sarah cut him off. Don't talk to me about civilization. She turned to face Garrett directly. I invoke pack law. Garrett, son of Aldrich, I challenge you to single combat. If you win, I'll accept that as proof of your innocence, and leave Ashenvale forever. If I win, you'll confess your crimes before the entire village and face human justice. Do you accept? Garrett stared at her, and Sarah saw the calculation in his eyes. He was larger, trained in combat by his father's guards. She was a girl who'd spent most of her life trying to avoid fights. To him, this probably seemed like an easy victory. I accept, he said with false bravado. And when I beat you half-blood, you'll crawl back to your animal friends and never show your face here again. Then let's end this. Sarah removed her cloak, revealing the glowing pack marks on her arms. Now, the crowd formed a ring in the central square. This was it, the moment Sarah had been building toward. Not just revenge, not just justice. Proof that the powerless girl they'd tormented had become something they could never break again. Garrett drew his sword, a fine blade, well-maintained, the weapon of someone who'd trained but never really fought. He settled into a fighter's stance, confident and smirking. Sarah stood empty-handed, her body relaxed, her eyes beginning to glow. Last chance to back down, Garrett taunted. I'd hate to mar that pretty face. Wait, you're not pretty, are you? Just another plain half-blood about to learn her place. Sarah smiled, and it was nothing human. Come find out. Garrett lunged, and Sarah showed him exactly what happens when you underestimate a wolf. Chapter 9. The Wolf's Justice. Garrett's sword came down in a brutal overhead strike meant to cleave Sarah from skull to sternum. She wasn't there. Sarah moved with speed that made the watching crowd gasp. One moment standing still, the next 6 feet to the left. Garrett's blade bit into empty cobblestones, sending sparks flying. Too slow, Sarah said quietly. Garrett snarled and spun, slashing horizontally. But Sarah was already moving again, flowing around the attack like water. She didn't even look like she was trying, just walking casually while Garrett exhausted himself chasing her shadow. Stand still and fight, Garrett roared, frustration cracking his composure. Why? Sarah tilted her head, her amber eyes gleaming. You wanted to prove your innocence through combat. So far, all you're proving is that you can't land a single hit, the crowd murmured. Some faces showed shock, others satisfaction. They were watching the golden boy, the mayor's son who'd never faced consequences, being toyed with by a girl he'd tried to murder. Garrett's face went crimson. He charged like a bull, sword raised, all technique abandoned in favor of brute force. Now, the beast inside Sarah whispered. Show them. Sarah stopped dodging. She met Garrett's charge head-on, catching his descending blade with her bare hands. The crowd screamed. Metal should have sliced through flesh and bone. Instead, Sarah's palms glowed with silver light, and the sword stopped dead, caught between hands that had become harder than steel. Garrett's eyes went wide with terror. What? Sarah twisted. The sword shattered like glass, fragments scattering across the cobblestones. Then she moved so fast, Garrett didn't even have time to flinch and slammed her palm into his chest. The mayor's son flew backward 15 feet and crashed into the well's stone wall hard enough to crack it. He slumped to the ground, gasping for air, blood trickling from his nose. "Get up," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the silent square. "You're not done yet." Garrett struggled to his feet, terror finally replacing arrogance. You're a monster." "No." Sarah moved forward slowly, deliberately, giving him time to see her coming. "I'm exactly what you made me. You tried to kill a girl who showed kindness to a wolf pup. That girl died in the fire. What survived is something far less forgiving." She reached down and hauled Garrett up by his shirt, lifting him one-handed until his feet dangled off the ground. The ease of it, the casual display of impossible strength, sent ripples of fear through the watching crowd. "Here's what's going to happen," Sarah said, her face inches from Garrett's. "You're going to confess. Every crime, every lie. Everything you did to me, to my grandmother, to Alara. You're going to tell the truth for once in your miserable life." I won't." Sarah's grip tightened, and something in Garrett's chest creaked ominously. Not breaking. Not yet. But the threat was clear. "You will," she said softly. "Because if you don't, I'll take you into the forest. And we'll see how long the mayor's son survives when the northern pack decides to hunt him." "You can't." Mayor Aldrich pushed through the crowd, his face apoplectic. "This is barbarism. Guards, arrest her." The village guards moved forward hesitantly, hands on their weapons. But Ravenna and the two-pack warriors stepped into their path, and the guards stopped dead. One look at those copper eyes, those predatory smiles, and the guards' courage evaporated. "Touch her," Ravenna said pleasantly, "and discover what happens when humans threaten pack members." The guards backed away. "You see this?" Sarah addressed the crowd, still holding Garrett aloft. "This is your leadership. A mayor who covers up his son's crimes, guards who enforce the strong over the just, a council that condemns the innocent and protects the guilty. Is this the Ashenvale you want?" Silence. Then someone spoke, old Willem the baker, his voice shaking but clear. "No. It's not." Another voice joined his. Then another. Within moments, dozens of villagers were speaking up, some timidly, others with growing anger. Years of resentment toward the mayor's corruption, toward Garrett's unpunished cruelty, suddenly finding voice. "Let the boy confess," someone shouted. "We deserve the truth," another yelled. The tide was turning. Sarah could feel it, the crowd's mood shifting from fear to righteous anger. They'd been bullied and controlled for so long, and now they saw someone standing up to their oppressors, someone who couldn't be silenced or threatened. "Last chance, Garrett," Sarah said. "Confess, or I let the pack have you." Garrett's resistance crumbled. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with blood from his broken nose. I started the fire, used oil from my father's stores, set 3 ignition points like he said." "Like who said?" Sarah's grip tightened. "My father," Garrett sobbed. "He planned it, said the half-blood was becoming a problem, that her trial made him look weak. He told me to make it look like an accident." "Garrett," Aldrich roared, "be silent." But his son was beyond stopping. The confession poured out in a torrent, how Aldrich had orchestrated the false theft charges, how he'd pressured Helena to force Alara's testimony, how he'd planned Sarah's death to tie up loose ends. Every corrupt scheme, every abuse of power, laid bare before the entire village. When Garrett finally ran out of words, Sarah dropped him. He collapsed to the cobblestones, broken and sobbing. The crowd's anger had reached a boiling point. People surged forward, shouting for justice, for the mayor's arrest, for accountability after years of abuse. "Enough!" Elder Brennan's voice boomed across the square. The old man looked haggard, aged 10 years in the last hour. "The council has heard the confession. Mayor Aldrich, you and your son are hereby stripped of authority and remanded to custody pending formal trial." "You can't do this," Aldrich sputtered. "I am this village. Without me, without you, we'll be better off," Brennan said coldly. "Guards, take them both." This time, the guards moved with confidence, seizing Aldrich and Garrett. The mayor struggled and cursed, but his son just went limp, all fight gone. As they were dragged away, Brennan turned to Sarah. His expression was complex: shame, respect, and something that might have been fear. "You've brought justice to Ashenvale," he said quietly. "But at what cost? You're no longer the girl who left here. What are you now?" Sarah met his gaze steadily. "I'm someone who won't be pushed around anymore. Someone who protects those who can't protect themselves. Someone who remembers every person in this village who looked away while I suffered." She let that sink in, watching the crowd shift uncomfortably. "But I'm also someone who understands that most of you were victims too. Afraid to speak up, afraid to act, trapped in a system that punished kindness and rewarded cruelty. So, I'm not here for vengeance against you. I'm here to offer you a choice." "What choice?" Willem asked. "Change." Sarah's voice rang across the square. "Ashenvale can continue as it was: small, fearful, controlled by whoever holds power, or it can become something better. A place where half-bloods aren't cursed, where the weak aren't trampled, where justice matters more than status." She gestured to Ravenna and the pack warriors. "The Northern Pack is willing to establish formal relations with Ashenvale, trade, protection, knowledge sharing, but only if this village proves it deserves that honor. Only if you show you've learned from this." Murmurs spread through the crowd, excited, hopeful. Trade with the Northern Pack could transform Ashenvale's fortunes. Protection from the wolves instead of fear of them. It was unprecedented. "And what do you want in return?" Brennan asked carefully. "Representation." Sarah's eyes glowed brighter. "A voice on your council for those who've been voiceless. Fair treatment for anyone, regardless of bloodline. And," her voice hardened, "a memorial for my grandmother. Miriam deserves to be remembered as someone who fought for what was right, not as a casualty of tragic accident." "Done," Brennan said immediately. "The council will vote on formal measures, but you have my word those changes will be made." Sarah studied him, reading the sincerity in his face. He meant it. Fear had motivated him initially, but now she saw genuine shame for what he'd allowed to happen. "Good enough," she decided. "For now." "Then Ashenvale has a future," Sarah said. "Prove yourselves worthy of it." She turned to leave, but Alara stepped forward, her face streaked with tears. "Sarah, wait. I'm so sorry. For everything. I should have spoken up sooner, should have stood by you. You stood by me when it mattered most." Sarah interrupted gently. "You risked everything to bring evidence. That took more courage than I think you realize. But your grandmother died knowing I was safe, died knowing I'd survive to fight another day." Sarah's throat tightened with grief, but she kept her voice steady. "I can't bring her back, but I can make sure her death meant something. That's what I'm doing here." Alara threw her arms around Sarah, sobbing. Sarah stiffened. Physical affection still felt strange after so long without it, but then she hugged back. Alara had been her only friend in this place. That deserved recognition. "Thank you," Alara whispered, "for being stronger than any of us deserved." Thomas approached next, his expression solemn. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry too. I was a coward for too long." "You found your courage eventually," Sarah said. "That's more than most people manage." As more villagers approached, some to apologize, others to thank her, many just to stare at what she'd become, Sarah felt the weight of it all settling on her shoulders. She'd won. She'd gotten justice for her grandmother, exposed Garrett and Aldrich's crimes, forced change in a village that desperately needed it. So why did she feel so hollow? "Because revenge is empty," Theron's words echoed in her mind. "Without purpose beyond it. She'd destroyed her enemies, yes. But what came next? She couldn't stay in Ashenvale, too many memories, too much pain. But she couldn't return to the Northern Pack either, not permanently. She was caught between worlds, belonging fully to neither." As if sensing her thoughts, Ravenna appeared at her side. "How do you feel?" "Lost," Sarah admitted quietly. "I got what I came for, but now I don't know what I'm supposed to do." "Oh, then perhaps it's time to stop doing what you're supposed to do," Ravenna said with a slight smile. "And start doing what you want to do." "What if I don't know what I want?" "Then you figure it out." Ravenna's hand found Sarah's shoulder. "You're young, powerful, and free from the obligations that bound you. That's terrifying, yes, but it's also an opportunity. Not many people get the chance to decide who they want to become. Sarah looked across the square at the village that had tormented her, now looking at her with new respect. At Ilara and Thomas, trying to make amends. At Elder Brennan, already organizing the council to implement changes. She'd broken the system that had broken her, forced accountability, created space for something better to grow. That's worth something, she thought. That matters. Come on, Ravenna said. Let's go home. Theron will want to hear how his newest pack member handled her first real challenge. Home, the Northern Pack compound, with its ancient stones and fierce loyalty and acceptance of what she'd become. It wasn't where she'd been born. But maybe, just maybe, it was where she belonged. Sarah took one last look at Ashenvale, committing it to memory. The village of her childhood, the place of her greatest pain and now her greatest triumph. Then she turned away and walked toward the forest, toward the pack, toward whatever future waited for her. Behind her, the village began the long process of rebuilding itself into something better. And ahead of her, somewhere in the ancient woods, a wolf pup waited to greet the woman who'd saved his life and, in doing so, saved her own. The half-blood girl was gone. The wolf-marked warrior walked on. Chapter 10. The Wolf's Promise. 6 months later, the world looked different. Sarah stood at the summit stone, watching the sun rise over the Northern Pack's territory. The view never got old, endless forest stretching to distant mountains, morning mist clinging to valleys. The pristine beauty of a land untouched by human corruption. She'd changed in those 6 months. Not just physically, though her body had grown stronger, more defined from constant training. But internally, the rage that had driven her through the blood awakening had settled into something more sustainable, a quiet determination to be better than those who'd wronged her. Footsteps approached from behind. Sarah didn't turn. She'd learned to identify pack members by their gait, their scent, the unique rhythm of their presence. "Kyrian," she said with a smile. "You're up early." The wolf that emerged from the tree line was no longer a pup. In 6 months, Kyrian had grown into a magnificent creature nearly as large as his father, with silver-white fur that gleamed in the dawn light. His amber eyes held the same intelligence they'd always had, but now tempered with maturity. He padded to Sarah's side and pressed his massive head against her hip. She scratched behind his ears, marveling, as she always did, at the trust he showed her. "Father wants to see you." Kyrian's voice whispered directly into her mind. The pack's mental communication had taken Sarah months to master, but now it felt as natural as speaking. Did he say why? He said, "It's time." Time. Sarah knew what that meant. For 6 months she'd been training, learning, growing into her new abilities. But she'd also been avoiding a decision: what came next. She couldn't stay with the pack forever, living in comfortable limbo. Eventually, she'd have to choose a path forward. "All right," Sarah said, giving Kyrian one last scratch. "Let's not keep the Alpha King waiting." They walked through the compound together, the wolf and the half-blood woman who'd saved his life. Pack members they passed nodded respectfully. Sarah had earned her place here through action, not bloodline. They respected that. Theron's den had become familiar territory. Sarah entered without hesitation, finding the Alpha King standing before a massive map carved into the stone wall. It showed the Northern Pack's territory, the surrounding human settlements, and marked in red areas of conflict. "Trouble?" Sarah asked. "Always." Theron turned, and his silver eyes studied her with that penetrating gaze she'd come to recognize. "But that's not why I called you here. Sit." Sarah sat on one of the cushioned benches. Kyrian settled at her feet, still protective even in his father's presence. "6 months ago, you came to us seeking vengeance," Theron began. "You've had your revenge. Garrett and his father are imprisoned. Ashenvale has reformed its laws, and your grandmother's memorial stands in the village square. You've accomplished everything you set out to do. But," Sarah heard the unspoken word, "but you're still here." Theron moved to sit across from her. "Don't misunderstand, you're welcome to stay as long as you wish. You've earned that right 100 times over, but I think we both know you're not staying because you want to. You're staying because you don't know where else to go." The observation hit uncomfortably close to home. Sarah had been avoiding that exact question for months. I don't fit in the human world anymore, she admitted. And I'm not fully pack. Where exactly am I supposed to go? That depends on what you want to do, not where you want to be. Theron leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Sarah, you're something unique, a bridge between two worlds. That's not a weakness, it's an opportunity. For what? For change. Real, lasting change. Theron gestured to the map. There are dozens of villages like Ashenvale scattered across these lands. Small, isolated, fearful of the supernatural. And there are supernatural communities, wolf packs, fae courts, ancient beings who view humans as beneath notice, or worse, as prey. The divide between these worlds grows wider every year. He met her eyes. You could be the one who closes that gap. A mediator, a protector of both sides. Someone who understands human fragility and supernatural power. Sarah's heart began to pound. You want me to be… what? An ambassador? I want you to be whatever you choose to be. Theron's smile was slight but genuine. But yes, the Northern Pack would officially recognize you as our emissary to human territories. You'd have our backing, our protection, our resources. Your job would be simple. Find places where humans and supernatural beings are in conflict, and broker peace, protect the innocent, punish the guilty, create understanding where there's only fear. That's not simple, Sarah said. That's impossible. So was surviving the Blood Awakening. So was bringing justice to Ashenvale alone. Theron's gaze was steady. You've already done the impossible. Sarah, this is just doing it on a larger scale. Sarah stood, needing to move, to think. She walked to the map, tracing the red marks that indicated conflicts. So many. So much pain and fear on both sides. What if I fail? She asked quietly. What if I make things worse? Then you'll learn from it and try again. Theron joined her at the map. Sarah, I'm not asking you to solve every problem or save every victim. I'm asking you to try, to be present in spaces where understanding is needed, to show both humans and supernatural beings that coexistence is possible, because I'm living proof of it. Sarah realized. Exactly. Theron's hand settled on her shoulder. You carry wolf blood and human heritage. You've suffered under human cruelty but didn't become a monster in response. You have power but choose restraint. You're everything I wish more people, human and supernatural, could be. The weight of it was enormous, but underneath the fear, Sarah felt something else stirring. Purpose. Real, meaningful purpose, beyond revenge or survival. This is what grandmother meant, she thought suddenly. About kindness, being its own reward. Not that kindness prevents pain, but that choosing it anyway creates something worth building on. I'll do it, Sarah said, turning to face Theron. I'll be your emissary, your bridge. Whatever title you want to give it, I'll try. Theron's smile was rare and brilliant. Then let's make it official. He led her outside, where the entire pack had gathered, hundreds of wolves in both forms, surrounding the summit stone. Sarah's breath caught. This was ceremonial, important. Ravenna approached, carrying a bundle of dark leather. Your official gear, she said with a warm smile. Emissary of the Northern Pack gets certain perks. The leather was armor, lightweight, but incredibly strong, marked with the same glowing symbols that decorated Sarah's skin. A cloak of midnight black fur that shimmered silver in certain lights, and a blade short, perfectly balanced, forged from some metal that caught moonlight even in daylight. Wolf steel, Theron explained as Sarah examined the weapon. Stronger than any human-forged blade. It'll serve you well. Sarah donned the armor, fastened the cloak, belted the blade at her hip. When she looked at her reflection in the polished stone, she barely recognized herself. The frightened half-blood girl was truly gone. In her place stood a warrior, fierce, capable, ready. Sarah of Ashenvale. Theron's voice rang across the assembled pack. Do you swear to serve as bridge between the Northern Pack and the human world? To seek peace where possible, deliver justice where necessary, and represent our interests with honor? I swear it, Sarah replied, her voice steady and strong. Do you swear to protect the innocent, regardless of species? To stand against cruelty wherever you find it? To use your power wisely and remember that strength without mercy is tyranny? I swear it. Then, before the pack and the ancient forest, I name you Sarah Wolfborn, emissary of the Northern Pack, bearer of the Blood Awakening, and friend to all who seek justice. Theron's eyes blazed with silver light. May your path be clear, your purpose true, and your enemies wise enough to flee before you. The pack erupted in howls, a deafening chorus of support and acceptance. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. This was a beginning, not an ending, a new chapter opening. Kyrian bounded forward and shifted his massive wolf form, blurring, reshaping into that of a young man with silver white hair and amber eyes. He was perhaps 16 in appearance, though Sarah knew wolf aging didn't follow human patterns. I'm coming with you, he announced. Kyrian Theron started. Father, she saved my life. I owe her. Kyrian's expression was stubborn, a young wolf testing his independence. Besides, she'll need someone who can shift fully, someone who can scout ahead, carry messages to the pack, provide backup in her wolf form when she needs it. Theron looked at Sarah. Your decision. He's no longer a pup, but he's still young. Taking him means being responsible for his safety. Sarah studied Kyrian, the boy who'd been a frightened pup 6 months ago, who'd grown into something brave and loyal. Having him along would complicate things, yes, but it would also mean having someone she trusted absolutely at her back. If he's willing to follow my lead and not take stupid risks, Sarah said, then I'd be honored to have him. Kyrian's grin was pure joy. I promise, no stupid risks. Well, no unnecessary stupid risks. We'll work on that definition, Sarah said dryly. Over the next few days, they prepared for departure. Ravenna taught Sarah the basics of diplomatic negotiation. The elders provided information on nearby conflicts that might benefit from mediation, and Theron gave her something precious, a seal bearing the Northern Pack's mark, proof of her authority to speak on their behalf. Use it wisely, he said. That seal carries weight. It can open doors or start wars, depending on how it's wielded. On the morning of departure, Sarah stood at the compound's edge, her supplies packed, Kyrian in wolf form waiting patiently beside her. The pack had gathered to see them off, a tradition for those embarking on significant journeys. Ravenna hugged her fiercely. Come back sometimes. You'll always have a home here. I will, Sarah promised. Theron approached last. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the ancient Alpha King and the half-blood girl he'd saved. So much had changed between that first desperate meeting and now. Thank you, Sarah said quietly, for giving me a chance when you had no reason to. You earned every chance I gave you. Theron's hand settled on her shoulder. Sarah, remember that power is a tool, not a solution. The real work you'll be doing isn't about strength. It's about understanding, about seeing the humanity in both humans and beasts. I'll remember. Good. His smile was slight but warm. Now go. Show the world what happens when someone refuses to be broken by cruelty. Show them that kindness and strength aren't opposites, they're partners. Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Then she turned and walked toward the forest, Kyrian at her side, the dawn sun painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Behind her, the pack howled not goodbye, but see you again. The sound followed her into the trees, a promise that she'd never truly be alone. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood at the edge of another village, Millbrook, a settlement plagued by mysterious disappearances blamed on forest monsters. She'd investigated, found the truth, not monsters, but a desperate Fey court whose land had been poisoned by human mining operations. They'd been stealing people to force negotiations. Both sides were wrong. Both sides were suffering. Both sides needed someone to bridge the gap. This is it, Sarah thought, adjusting her cloak. This is what I do now. Kyrian, in human form beside her, grinned. Ready to terrify some humans and lecture some Fey? That's not how I'd phrase it, but essentially yes. Sarah's eyes gleamed amber in the fading light. Let's go build some bridges. They walked into Millbrook together, the wolf-marked emissary and her shape-shifting guardian. Some villagers screamed. Others reached for weapons, But a precious few, looked at Sarah's official bearing, her confident stance, and chose to listen instead of fight. "I'm Sarah Wolfborn, emissary of the Northern Pack," she announced to the gathering crowd. "I'm here about your missing people, and I'm here to tell you that the solution isn't more violence, it's understanding. If you're willing to listen, I can help you, both you and the beings you call monsters." An old woman stepped forward, reminded Sarah painfully of her grandmother. "Can you bring back those who were taken?" "I can try," Sarah said honestly. "I can't promise success, but I can promise I'll fight for justice for all of you, human and supernatural alike." The old woman studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "That's more than anyone else has offered. We're listening." As Sarah began explaining the situation, the poisoned land, the desperate Fae, the need for compromise, she felt something settle in her chest. This was right. This was what she was meant to do. Not revenge, not destruction, but building slowly, painfully, one bridge at a time, a world where the powerful protected the weak instead of exploiting them, where half-blood girls weren't cursed, where frightened wolf pups could be saved, where kindness mattered as much as strength. Her grandmother had been right after all. Kindness was its own reward, not because it prevented suffering, but because choosing it anyway created something worth fighting for. Sarah smiled, her amber eyes bright with purpose. The half-blood girl had died in flames. The wolf's emissary had risen from the ashes. And her work, her real work, was just beginning. Epilogue. 1 year later, Elder Brennan of Ashenvale opened the envelope with trembling hands. The seal, a silver wolf's head, marked it as official correspondence from the Northern Pack. Such letters came rarely, and each one had changed the village in profound ways. Inside was a brief message in Sarah's distinctive handwriting. "Elder Brennan, the peace between Ashenvale and the Northern Pack continues to benefit both parties. Your reforms have been noted and appreciated. The memorial to my grandmother stands as a reminder that even small villages can choose justice over convenience. I write to inform you that I've successfully mediated disputes in 7 villages across the Northern Territories. 3 Fae courts have agreed to formal non-aggression pacts with human settlements. 2 rogue wolf packs have been brought back into proper pack structure, and 1 particularly nasty necromancer has been discouraged from further activities. The work is hard. Some days I wonder if I'm making any difference at all, but then I think of grandmother, and the kindness she showed even when the world showed her only cruelty. I think of a frightened wolf pup I couldn't abandon, and I remember that every small choice to help instead of hurt matters. I don't know if I'll ever return to Ashenvale. Too many painful memories live there, but I want you to know that I forgive the village for what it took from me, not because you deserve forgiveness, but because carrying that hatred would make me into the monster you once feared I was. Use your second chance wisely, Ashenvale. Not everyone gets one. With respect. Sarah Wolfborn, emissary of the Northern Pack." Brennan set down the letter with shaking hands. Around him, the council hall bore evidence of the changes Sarah had forced upon them: new laws protecting the vulnerable, seats reserved for previously excluded voices, a justice system that actually sought truth instead of convenience. Outside, her grandmother's memorial stood in the village square, a simple stone bearing Miriam's name and the words, "She taught that kindness matters, even when the world forgets. Let us remember." Children played around it now, laughing and free. Some of them were half-bloods, or children of mixed heritage, or simply different in ways that once would have made them targets. They played without fear, because one girl had refused to stay broken. Brennan smiled through his tears. Some debts could never be repaid, but they could be honored. Ashenvale would honor Sarah's sacrifice by becoming the village it should have been all along, one where the grandmother's lesson lived on, where kindness wasn't just a platitude but a practice, where every child learned that strength meant protecting the weak, not exploiting them, where being different wasn't a curse. It was just being